All right, guys. I just learned that IP is streaming this exact same topic. So we'll see how many viewers we get tonight. Hopefully we can snag some of his viewers over here. But what we're doing tonight, I've got Dr. Trent Dougherty on with me to break down the Jordan Peterson versus 20 Atheists video that was launched on Jubilee, which actually started out, if you hadn't heard this news yet, it started out, the title of this video was actually One Christian versus 20 Atheists. And then Jordan Peterson apparently made a big fuss about it. And he's like, no, you need to change the title. So they changed the title. So now it's Jordan Peterson versus 20 Atheists. And that's ultimately what it was. We're going to talk about that throughout this stream. I think one of the biggest things that people are complaining about with this whole video, and the reason why we're talking about it is because the producers set this up. And originally they had in mind, they were going to set up this one Christian versus these 20 atheists, because they just did the same thing with an atheist. They just did Alex O'Connor versus 20 Christians, which was interesting. They had some Mormons in there. So that's what they just did with an atheist, and they wanted to do it with a Christian. And people had a lot of problems with that because Jordan Peterson is not very forthcoming. We're going to talk about that on his views, his own personal beliefs. And so does he identify as a Christian? That question came up a lot during this episode. And we're going to look at it. But a lot of people were saying that this was a bad showing for JP. And as I was watching this episode, I was thinking, I purposely told Trent not to watch this because we're going to watch a bunch of these clips from this video live. And we're going to get some feedback from Dr. Dougherty. So I told him not to watch it, but when I was watching it, I was like, okay, he didn't do as bad as everyone was making it out. Okay, Jordan Peterson, I think most people, even if you disagree with him, you can admit that this is a very smart person. Okay, he's a smart individual. I think one of my big issues, and maybe Trent, you can come in here. One of my big issues with JP, and I know you're his biggest fan. That's one of the reasons I'm having you on to talk about this. But you're his biggest fangirl. You are.
Well, he did. He did a lot for me, man. I mean, he helped me out in a hard time. I owe him a lot. My wife and I went to see him for her birthday as a date, and it was a blast. So yeah, no, I'm a JP guy. I'm on Team JP.
Like I said, biggest fangirl ever. But so I wanted to have you on to give your perspective on do you think that he did as bad as all these people are making it out? But my point was that this is a very smart individual, even if you disagree with him. And I think the people the atheists that were at this event started to realize that a little bit later on. But one of my problems with Jordan Peterson is that he's almost he kind of speaks his own language, and you have to learn his language before you can really appreciate what he's saying. Do you agree with that, or do you think that he's talking a normal language?
Not entirely. Well, there are options besides speaking his own language and speaking a normal language. What's certainly the case is he does not speak a normal language, either in terms of his intonation and his voice, nor in his overall vocabulary. But he does speak in a Jungian voice, and there are. If you went to an association, a global association of Jungians meeting, you'd find a lot of people walking around talking about a lot of the same stuff he's talking about, using a lot of the terminology and language that he uses. So it's more like a lingo or shop talk within a certain genre that's just less common. So, for example, a lesser known but really great philosophical association is the American Maritain Association that celebrates the philosophy of French neo-Thomist philosopher Jacques Maritain. And there's a certain jargon that goes on in those meetings. And you might think if you met one of these individuals just in normal conversation that they were talking their own idiosyncratic way, but they're not. They're just talking in a jargon that is less commonly known. And if you read a lot of Jung and talk to a lot of Jungians, the stuff that Jordan Peterson says is not going to sound nearly as foreign.
You just put me to sleep. So Jungian, he's a Jungian. That's one thing I don't know a ton about is Jung. If that's even how you pronounce his name. Do you even say, okay, we were talking before we went live, we were talking about Seigart and how you were saying that there's no Seigart because you just don't think that there's a person with that name. That's how I feel about Jung. What kind of name is Jung?
he's Jung at heart. That's what JP is, Jung at heart. But Jung's very important. So I'm a 12 stepper recovering addict, and that actually all traces back to Carl Jung, the idea that the sort of transformation that works for addicts, it has to be a spiritual experience, and that's part and parcel of the big book. What goes on? What Bill W's plan that developed into Alcoholics Anonymous, and then 12-step programs generally, and it's changed millions and millions, perhaps at this point billions of lives. And that was a fundamentally Jungian insight at the very, very beginning of all that, was that our transformation starts with a spiritual experience that we have to have that transforms our lives, and that nothing else will do that. And so that's and this is not irrelevant to this point about JP's brilliance in responding to these people, because I did what you asked. I did not watch anything of this beyond a clip from X that this atheist kid, this little skate punk atheist, Danny with an I, probably. I mean, come on, man. I mean, so this little skate punk atheist kid, like, he's got his ex account, and I watched just a little bit of his interaction that he posted, and he misses.
We actually are gonna watch that. We're gonna watch
great.
that the longer section when we actually get to some clips and stuff. So
it's too bad that he chickened out for tonight. That would have been. I was actually looking forward to
There's more. No, there's more to that. I don't think he chickened out. I think he actually wants to invite you on his channel.
No,
so
he didn't.
no, he didn't. Yes, he does. Nah. Yes, he does. No, no. The details.
He and Sygart. He and this mythical Sygart guy.
No, I think. Anyways, so for tonight, I want to set up the audience and let the audience know like what you can expect if you watch this entire video. So what we're going to do, we're going to play some clips from this Jubilee episode. And in particular, I'm going to play the clips that I think show that JP actually did have a good point to make here. But at the end of this episode, and by this episode, I mean like the one that you're currently watching, at the end of this episode, I'm going to offer something, and Dr. Dougherty is going to actually help us with this because he's an expert in Bayesian reasoning. I'm going to try to like steelman JP's argument to a degree that you could actually start to use this in your own apologetic method. Okay, like wherever you are on the spectrum of apologetics, like whether you consider yourself an apologist or whether you just like consider yourself someone who's learning. Correct.
You're on the you're on the spectrum, all right.
I almost certainly am. But wherever you guys consider yourself, like if you think that you're this big apologist, or if you think you're just like in the learning stage, you can incorporate, I think, what we're going to talk about tonight into your own apologetic strategy. So it's in the section that we're going to look at is I think the most interesting of the whole episode. It's basically the whole section on worship. Like he thinks, JP makes the argument, makes the claim that atheists still worship something. And the interaction, there was 3 different people that he interacted with in that section. We're going to watch as much as we can before we get copyright striked by Jubilee.
Stricken, so copyright stricken.
Excuse me. What we're going to have to do though is do a lot of pausing. Okay. And that's just the nature of like these commentary type videos. We've got to pause frequently. Otherwise we will get copyright stricken. So just be aware of that. If you're expecting us to play these super long clips, I would love to, but we do need to stop and comment so that we don't get all these copyright strikes. Also, we will be taking super chats. So if you send in a super chat, we will read those out on the air. And
that's my favorite part, by the way.
Yes. Get some live interaction.
My favorite part.
Some live interaction with you guys. So let's go now to look at this beautiful still from Jordan Peterson.
Great way to stop. How long did it take you, Cameron, to come up with the literally most unflattering screen moment of that entire thing? Were you able to do that in a day, or did you start yesterday to do that?
I've been searching for a long time. No,
did you have AI do that? You uploaded the video and told like, well, Grok had a pretty unflattering, photo, but ChatGPT won this round.
No, I literally paused the video as I was like, we did some preparing before we went live, and I like paused it unfortunately, on this face. Originally, it was on some other guy's face, but so this is where Jordan Peterson's about to explain what this whole section is about and how atheists still worship something. Again, I think you guys are going to get something out of this, okay? The title of this video is about like JP didn't do as horribly as everyone thinks he did. He actually was brilliant, and I think this section is going to show that. And also, we're going to get some feedback from Dr. Dougherty, who can maybe give some additional insights that you guys probably missed if you were watching this on double speed, or if you were watching this really quickly and just came away thinking that he lost, or that he did a terrible job. So let's go ahead and start with just playing this, and then Trent, if you want me to pause, just let me know. Otherwise, I'll be doing my own fair share of pausing along the way.
My next claim is that everybody worships something, including atheists, even though they might not know it.
Okay, before they come up, I said I was going to do a lot of pausing. So the whole thing, this whole section kind of centers around the question of like the definition of worship. So pay attention for that as this section is playing. Okay, so think about like when definitions of worship are given and how that interacts with like what people are saying, how they're responding. Keep that in your mind as this section plays.
Hi.
Good work.
Thank you.
Hi there.
I'm Zena. So I want to start off with like
So Zena is awesome.
defining terms.
Yep.
How do you define worship?
Prioritize.
Prioritize. So almost like having a preference over something rather than the other.
It's a hierarchy of preferences.
Yeah.
And you use it to direct your attention.
Right.
So whatever you're attending to, you're worshiping.
Right. So I've kind of
Any initial thoughts on that definition?
Well, I can't get past the name Xena. So in the world of internet atheism, it seems like nobody will use their real name, including skate punk atheist. Is that just, I don't even know. I've never seen one of these things before. Are these guys real names, or is that like a moniker?
No, these are their real names. These are their real names.
Okay.
I think actually, let me take that back. I think they are, because in the case of Danny, could be a fake name. In the case of Xena, could be fake name. Maybe I do need to just say I don't know.
Also, man, Xena, I'm old school, man. Xena's with an X, so I don't know. But look, the thing is, the analytic philosopher in me, the spectrumy person in me, is obviously like, my first reaction is like one of pain, wincing pain, because I'm like, well, if you pay attention to something, you worship it. Oh, well, I'm paying attention to my glass. Am I worshiping my glass? So I think there's a tendency there's many vices, many different types of vices rooted in many different types of personality deficiencies that lead one to not take seriously what people are saying when they're trying to make a point. And so what part of the brilliance of Jordan Peterson here is, he knows that this is not an occasion where you try to give necessary and sufficient conditions, right? And that is, when I was starting in analytic philosophy, I loved this, necessary. And then I came to see it's a dumb game to play. And so I think it's actually brilliant the way he's starting with an anchor concept. And the deeper I got, and I believe the better I got at real analytic philosophy, the more I realized that we're not looking for necessary and sufficient conditions. That's a fool's errand in most cases. What we're looking for is the best way to understand most complex philosophical concepts is through a more Wittgensteinian family resemblance type semantics. And so you start with a paradigm instance or a paradigm property. And so I think he's starting with the core property, something in the honest, something at the core of the idea. So no, so it would be silly of me, and I look at myself and I say, oh, what a dumb first response to say something smart alecky like that. So I think it's actually great that he just says, let's start with the notion of preference, because preference is how
priority, I think, is the term that he used.
Well, but preference is how most economists and decision theorists operationalize prioritization. So if I say I prioritize gold to silver, what does that mean? prioritization isn't a basic notion, but preference is a pretty basic notion. Preference is something that decision theorists will consider a basic notion, and so it's okay. Well, S prioritizes A over Z just in case S prefers A to Z in all cases, something like that. So we'd have to rewind the tape to see if he said prioritize or prefer, but preference is going to be the basic notion anyway. But the reason he's bringing those into either one of those concepts in is to create a hierarchy of value, and he gets
Yeah.
so he gets right to the heart. He gets right to the heart of worship right away, which is value.
Yeah. Okay. So you're basically in agreement. And he did mention the hierarchy. That's going to be a really big thing moving forward in this section as well, because a lot of people sort of missed that and didn't really appreciate or understand that initially, which I think was also the case in the case of Danny. We'll see that as we get to that section.
Kind of become a little bit familiar with your idea of like this value-laden hierarchy,
Yeah.
right? And you kind of posit that at the bottom of this hierarchy, or you could call it top or bottom, I suppose. Right. At the bottom of this hierarchy, this foundational priority in your life is going to be considered God.
That's
is that
right.
correct?
Yes.
Right. I'm trying to imagine a situation in which could there be that someone has a priority at their foundation that is different from someone else's?
Oh, definitely.
So I won't comment. We'll just kind of listen to what she's trying to lay out here. You may actually be able to see where she's going with this.
Well, notice too that like he's really listening. I mean, he really wants to understand what she's saying. And I've never seen this person before, but she's the kind of person I could definitely listen to. She seems to be earnest. She seems to be trying to ask some sort of discerning question, and he's really interested. I mean, I don't think you can fake that sort of look and that behavior. I think he really wants to understand where she's going with this.
Yeah. I think that's right.
Oh, definitely.
Right. So we can have different conceptions of God.
That's why we fight.
Right. So
There's Danny.
Is that Danny boy?
That's Danny.
essentially,
Hey,
there's
Danny
not one God, but there are
boy.
multiple gods, and these gods exist in some realm of truth. It's true that this person has one God and it exists.
Yeah, probably better to think about it as multiple values, but that there's a hierarchy of values with
Yeah, so she wants to say that there's multiple gods on his schema, like on his definition of the term worship. If it's based on this value preference, hierarchical, your ultimate value, whatever you're chasing, people are going to have different values that they're chasing ultimately. And so she's questioning him, are there different gods then? Because if there's different values, there's different things that you can get to. It seems like there's competing values, and then he made the comment, well, that's why people have been fighting about this. What are your thoughts on all of this?
Well, there's two different things going on at the same time. So first, there's the concept of of hierarchy as the essence of worship, and we can't, that's the point of the question, so we can't lose track of that. That's a separate issue than her reductio, because she's set out, she's thought about this ahead of time, right? So she's got a reductio ad absurdum. She's going to say, if what you say is right, if this is what it means to worship. And then she brings in his concept of God as sort of the thing that you're ultimately committed to. And that she doesn't need any of the value stuff for that, though, right? The hierarchies and worship stuff is technically totally separate from that. All she needed for the reductio was the concept that God is the thing that you have that is your highest priority. But notice that even in Scripture we talk about, you've made an idol for yourself. You have made for yourself gods. Moses comes down and says that in some translations. I don't remember the Hebrew off the top of my head, but in some cases, when he sees that they're worshiping the golden calf, he says, "You have bowed down to gods." And I don't think that's ancient Hebrew polytheism. I don't think he thought they were real gods, but it is a figure of speech. And so, yes, in a sense, there are lots of gods. But in any conversation, you have to start at the general and then say, okay, are we speaking literally or figuratively? And you say, okay, well, no, I don't believe there are literally multiple gods, but I do believe that people make gods in that sense, in the sense in which we say that all the time. Nobody questions it. If I say you've made a god out of money to some, laissez-faire capitalist, and somebody came along and said, oh, Doherty's a polytheist, that's just stupid, right? That's just stupid. And what we see again and again and again, see again and again and again in internet atheism is people being stupid like that, and they're not playing the same language game as anybody else. And the proper, the intellectually mature and respectable and virtuous language game is to say, hey, what do you mean by that? Because if on a flat-footed reading, it would make you a polytheist. They say, no, I mean, those are different gods in the sense that Moses would have said to the idolatrous Hebrews, you have bowed down to foreign gods and things like that. But no, I think that, metaphysically there is one, but we have these different conceptions of God. That's all he needs. And I don't know. I have no idea if that's where he goes with this or not, because I legitimately have not seen one second of this.
You guys can see at the top here, the subtitle of this section, everybody worships something, even though they might not know it. I just wanted to flag that for you guys. I want you to think about the way, like, how could that be turned into an argument for the existence of God? Because even if it's true, it seems like on the surface, like even if that's true, how is that evidence for theism over atheism? We're going to talk about that at the end of the show. So I just wanted to flag that for you guys. If you can't see how that might, like, why is this even being discussed in a conversation with, what one Christian versus 20 atheists, or Jordan Peterson versus 20 atheists? Why is this even something that's relevant? That's a question that you had. We're going to discuss that at the end of this. This
and
episode.
I think that's straightforwardly evidence for the existence of God. Straightforwardly.
Yes, but we're going to show why that's the case toward the end. Yep. And actually, the Bayes bar app that I made and was introduced to you guys in a few videos back, that's going to make another appearance tonight. We're going to mess around with it live, so it should be a lot of fun. So let's just continue here and listen to where their conversation goes. We'll listen to a little bit more Zena, and then we're going to switch to Danny, and then the third person is actually the one that I wanted to get to. Zena, I liked a lot, and if you guys want to go watch the whole thing between them two, they actually had another interaction later on in the video. I highly recommend listening to that. But the main reason to listen to Zena is because she actually, like you pointed out, Trent, I think she's trying to, like, earnestly listen and earnestly get to something with him.
It's nice.
And it wasn't necessarily the case with everyone there. So let's continue, though.
It's something at the bottom.
Right, but at the bottom is God, and
that's a definition. Yeah.
So at the bottom is God, and there can be multiple people with different conceptions of God, and they're each valid in being called God. So there are multiple gods that exist.
It depends on what you mean by valid. So far, so good, but it depends on what you mean by valid, because I would say that some foundational conceptions don't play out when they're implemented. So if you put the wrong thing at the foundation, you end up in hell, for example. That's what happens in totalitarian states.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're saying...
So they're not all equal. Like, all foundational principles are not equal, even though they...
Yeah, he's sort of making a similar point to the one you just made.
Yeah, so, I mean, he would clearly say that the thing that you made a god into turns out to be a demon, right? So it's actually fitting into the Old Testament typology quite well, actually, because he's talking about understanding. Like, you come to find out that if you put the wrong thing, if you worship the wrong thing, it turns out you were worshiping a demon, and that's what, Paul says things like that too, and so I find his way of being here very biblical.
What you can't argue in this, as you guys have watched this section so far, you can't argue that what he's been saying here is horrible, right? You can't, at least in this small section, you can't say that what he's saying is nonsense or didn't, like, interact with what she was saying. Like, clearly, I think, if anything, what this shows is that he's thought about these issues to a very deep level. I mean, he came here and wanted to discuss this particular line of thinking, right? Everyone worships something, even though they might just not know it. And I think that's very profound, and there's reasons why we should be thinking more about this in the apologetic sphere. Again, we're going to get to that a little bit later on. But I just wanted to flag again that Jordan Peterson, like, he did a good job, but we're going to see more about, like, I think this is going to be fleshed out more as we watch this section. So let's watch a little bit more of Zena, and then we'll switch to Danny. And Danny was the one who, all the clips, and it was even played at the very beginning of the Jubilee episode and stuff as like the spiciest part of the whole conversation. So we'll get to that probably in the next couple minutes.
They might be equally foundational, right?
So what makes one kind of foundational tenet, like, better than another one?
That's an excellent question.
So I think this question that she asked right here is why at the end of this section, which we won't watch, he says, you know, it was very nice talking with you. Like, he's very appreciative. Like, she was very inquisitive and yeah, good question.
Yeah, and this sets things up for his interaction with Danny too, because he is matching the energy that the person brings to them. She brought a fairly inquisitive, a challenging but fairly inquisitive energy to him, and he brought an inquisitive energy back to her. And then when we see what happens with other people, you're going to see the same thing happen, really.
Yeah. Let me go ahead and switch forward a little bit and get to Danny. We'll watch Danny's interaction. Doesn't last very long. You guys will see why as we watch it. But I think he does actually raise an interesting point, which was unfortunate that the way that he rose the question, his point and stuff, if he would have gone about it a different way, he could have had a really great interaction with him. And he gives some reasoning on that on his X profile, which you referenced earlier, Trent, that he tries to explain like why he did that. And I have some thoughts about that. Let's just watch and I'll share those thoughts. By the way, this running up and stuff is all fake. I don't know if you know that. I've talked to people I
did not know that.
Who have been to the show, and they plan out in advance who's the one that's going to the chair, and then they act out running to the chair. It's really lame.
I am scandalized. It's
really lame. Isn't that lame?
Yeah, it is so lame. It is so lame that I think we need to have our own version of it where it is full contact. I mean, like put gym mats out there. Like you got to be like, you know, maybe wear some pads or something. Like, we need to have full contact.
See, and I also don't like, I don't like what they do with the flags, because your people on your own team are like voting you out. I think that IP made this in another stream, made this point in another stream that they did yesterday with David Wood and AP. I don't like the flag thing, because your own team is sort of working against you. Now, I mean, maybe you could give an argument why that's a good thing, but I think maybe going by like a time, like each person that actually makes it to the chair gets about 5 minutes. And that way you've got to prioritize your time and listen and hone in, as opposed to like getting voted off. Even if you're making a good point and you're in the middle of a good point and you still get voted off, that seems like a bad situation or scenario to be in, as opposed to you've got your 5 minutes and you just, you know, you can go as deep as you can in those 5 minutes or however long.
Yeah, and I can't even comment because I know so little about this. I don't even hardly know what you're talking about.
Well,
I have no idea how
that's what they do. That's what they do. Yeah. Okay. So maybe for people that haven't actually seen the episode, including you, Trent, what they do is, as they're talking, people will start to raise their flag. The people sitting in this group, they'll start to raise their flag one by one. And if you get over, I think there's 20 people there. If you get over 10 flags, people will raise their red flag. Then you get voted off. You have to go sit back down, and someone else can go then try to go get the chair and talk to them for the remaining amount of time that they have set. That's how it works. And not a very good, I don't think it's a really good setup, especially for a situation where you're trying to get at truth. I don't think this is the right way to go about it. But it makes for good entertainment, right? I mean, it's clearly,
well, I mean,
3.7 million people have been interested in this. So
yeah, but that many people watch Justin Bieber. I mean, like, that doesn't make it good. I mean,
well, I said entertaining. I mean,
man, I don't know if that even counts as entertaining. It's more like, is a train wreck's not entertaining. People, in Dallas here, 99% of all major slowdowns are people driving in fully unblocked lanes, fully cleared lanes, just looking at accidents. I don't think they're entertained. I think they're just like, it's just some sort of freaking, it's a character defect.
All right, Trent, let's go.
Hey, Dr. Peterson.
How are you doing?
Danny, nice to meet you.
What's your name?
Danny.
Danny.
You're saying atheists worship things or people or places, whatever. Can you?
So he's trying to figure him out. Like JP is like instantly trying to try not to cringe too hard over there.
What a start. Oh my God.
Can you be very clear about your definition of worship again?
Attend to, prioritize, and sacrifice for.
So he said prioritize
There you go. Yeah,
and sacrifice for, and then he also says the hierarchy, which Danny misses.
Yeah, because to sacrifice for entails hierarchy, and the sort of sacrificial system that Jordan Peterson talks about a lot is the sacrifice of the present for the future. He talks about that a lot. That delayed gratification is the human's first superpower, and then sacrificing yourself for others. Sacrifice and so that's got the concept of prioritization and hierarchy and value in there. So he takes it just a little bit farther here, yeah. And notice that all of those things are scalar. They come in degrees. So even take something as mundane as paying attention to, and go back to like 21-year-old, totally a-hole analytic philosophy, Trent, like, oh, attend to, so I'm attending to this, and so I worship it. But that's to miss the point. 21-year-old a-hole Trent as opposed to 54-year-old a-hole Trent. just in a different way. My a-holitude is more richly, textured now than it was then.
You're more
It's very
refined.
coarse. That's right, more refined a-holishness. But truly, I mean, myself and a lot of other people like me who were very clever and very quick, missed a lot of value by jumping on people's use of language rather than listening and inquiring and thinking. So think about, if you do want to, we say things like, oh, they worship, I have no idea who's hot right now. I'm so totally out of it. Who do you know? You're a younger man than me. Is there somebody who's the it girl in Hollywood, or the
I
it
like how
guy?
you said you're a younger man than me, trying to insinuate that I'm not young.
You are not young. You are not young. You can.
I
forget
will
that.
have you know.
left that behind.
I was featured in the New York Post as a young Catholic convert. So
Yeah, by a bunch
I'm
of
a young,
60-year-olds.
bona fide
You're
young.
Young, yeah. You're like, young is a context-sensitive predicate. Like you are young in a geriatric center that is the
Dude.
New York Post editorial board. All those freaking guys are like 68 years old, man. So yeah, you're young compared to those guys.
I literally couldn't understand why I was being interviewed as like what the young, like maybe they just didn't know that I'm an old person. Like I'm an old guy.
It's
Like
relative.
almost,
It's relative. I mean,
Yeah.
hey, a 14-year-old's like a washed up old, gymnast. So it's like, it's all relative. It's all relative.
Yeah.
But the point being, I have literally no idea who is, popular in pop culture right now. But like,
who
say
am
Elvis.
I thinking of?
Sydney Sweeney?
Zendaya. There you go, Zendaya. She's
Okay,
a very popular actress.
Is she the Spider-Man's girlfriend? Is she Spider-Man's
Yes.
girlfriend? Okay. Was she in Euphoria?
Euphoria
Or is
does
that
not
another
ring a bell.
Z?
Dune.
Yeah, you say that.
She was in Dune.
Oh, that was I want to like her, but that role in Dune was terrible. And I loved Dune,
Yeah.
man.
Why are
That
we talking
role
about
was
her?
horrible.
What is your point with someone popular from the? Are you?
That the idea that paying attention to is in a way the essence of worship. So like, let's go back and somebody who has been worshipped in a way, like Michael Jackson or Elvis or there have been people, celebrities who were essentially worshipped, and like, well, how,
And
you
there
said,
is an
well,
there's an appropriate sense in which that actually does apply to them. A
100%.
definition or a usage of the term worship that actually literally applies to them.
Yeah,
And so
it's
things
a-
that people have done toward them.
Yeah, for sure. And even in ordinary language, it's, oh my God, I just worship, this person. I'm to there right now. So my favorite artist is Sierra Farrell, and I could easily see myself. I mean, I'm just obsessed, and Sarah and I went to see see her live in concert. We go to a lot of live music shows, and I would almost be like, oh my God, I worship her. Like if I said that in ordinary conversation in the right context, nobody would even challenge it. It wouldn't even say, you would understand what that meant. And you say, well, how does that manifest itself? How does my worship of Sierra Farrell manifest itself? Well, I'm watching all her videos and I'm listening to all her music and I'm watching biopics and I'm reading her autobiography. What am I doing? I'm attending to her, right? I'm paying attention to her all the time. And so this idea that, because when I first heard Jordan Peterson say this, I didn't like it. I wasn't like, oh, yes, exactly. But what I did was I thought, okay, he's a smart guy. He's thought about this a lot. It's clear that everything that he says is the result of a whole lot of reflection. So he's thought more about this than I have. And we're in the same rough category of intelligence in terms of like there's not such a big difference that I can't hope to like we're not going to understand one another in some way. So I think, okay, well, what do I have to learn from him? And then I start thinking about that, and as a result I get the benefit of a realization of how important the notion of attention is to the concept of worship. And so I get the benefit through the virtue of open-mindedness and inquisitiveness, that my concept of worship is enriched by Jordan Peterson's brilliant insight to put that front and center.
I think that's good. Let's go ahead and continue playing then, and get this screen grab of Danny off here.
Okay, that's it. That's your understanding
Yeah,
of
that's
worship.
pretty good.
Well, I could flesh it out, but that'll do for the time we have.
Okay.
That'll do for the time we have. So he's like, he already knows that he's not
I
going
think
to be
he's
spending
already
much time.
seeing, this kid ain't gonna last long. That's right.
Yeah, yeah. For the time that you and I have, yeah. Like this guy, yeah. Danny came ready to box with JP, and that's one thing I wanted to mention is that like they've never met. Okay, you're coming at this dude, and you like, where is all this animosity coming from? Like, you've never met this person. This is another human being who you may have like been frustrated by things that they've said, but what does that have? Like, you just met this person. Why are you coming at him like with your fangs out? It's like I don't understand in like a one-to-one person.
I mean, it's part of it is just simple immaturity, right? The guy's like 12 years old, and he's probably, and half of his life was, the COVID pandemic. So he's down in his, mom's basement playing on his Game Boy. And so he's got no socialization. He's got no life experience. He's smarter than like the other people in his basement. So he thinks he's smart, but he doesn't have the classical virtue of docility, of teachableness, right? And he's still stuck. And look, I can't.
Which
judge
we did.
him
We
too
saw
much.
that
was
with
the same-
it seemed like we saw that with Xena, right? Like she was
she was listening.
completely different approach.
Yeah, night and day. And so he's agitated, and I think I got this from his X clip today. And again, like I can't judge him too harshly because I was exactly the same way, when I was 12. And it's like he's so agitated by somebody who would define worship as paying attention. Like I'm paying enough attention to see you finish off your little fancy coffee there in your hipster mustache, but like that doesn't mean I'm worshiping, your little hipster mustache. It just means I've got pretty good peripheral vision and I can resist the human temptation to only look at my own picture when I'm talking on a screen, because we all know we do it. Don't lie about it. We all do it. But in my peripheral vision that was not dedicated to looking at my own face on the screen, I saw you do that, right? So I paid attention. And look, the concept of attention is really, really important in the epistemological tradition that I come from through Roderick Chisholm and Rich Feldman. And I tell you what, oh my God, I'm drawing a blank of his name flickered before my mind right now. Declan Smithies is doing some of the best epistemology in the world right now through his work with attention. If you want to read some good epistemology right now, read Declan Smithies. His work on attention is absolutely fantastic. And I think my sort of senior thesis in grad school, it wasn't in my dissertation, but I think one of my last papers I wrote for Rich Feldman in an epistemology seminar my last year of my PhD program, I really at that point really came to see the importance of the notion of attention. And so I think that, but there was a time when I would have thought This is a ridiculous definition. I would have been so agitated, and it's clear in his X clip. He's so agitated that Jordan Peterson would give such a terrible definition when Jordan Peterson's not giving a definition. When an analytic philosopher hears definition, they think some sort of, necessary and sufficient and informative conditions. Whereas for Jordan Peterson, when you talk about a definition, he's thinking more something like the defining characteristic or essence, right? And so if you can just be patient enough, to understand what somebody is getting at, it's not like he's speaking a foreign language. That's within the admissible personifications of the notion of a definition. And if you're patient and you listen, then you can learn. But unfortunately, that sometimes takes maturity, and that sometimes takes time, which this guy hasn't had.
Okay. Do
keep going.
Catholics attend to Mary?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So do they fit that description of worship?
Gotcha! In your face. Sorry. Sorry, I could resist.
What was
Did I blow your eardrum?
what was the example that you came up with? Like, you said you love French fries, right? And it's like, oh, you're in love with French fries. You're gonna marry the French fries. Like, that's the level of critique that's happening here.
Yeah, it is. It is. This is like he looks like he's in sixth grade. He acts like he's in sixth grade, and I'm sure he's a smart kid. We would probably like each other, in fact, to be honest, if we hung out and had French fries, let's say, because I do love French fries. Oh my God, I love French fries. You can't even understand how much I love French fries.
Why don't you marry the French fries?
That's right. And so, but it's like, come on, man, just listen. Like, it's pretty weird that we have the same word that talks about that names a relation that I bear to God, my wife, and my children, and French fries. That's funny in a way. It's just like, what crazy language is this that we use the same term to express all these different properties? Well, probably if you pay attention, you can learn something from that. And if you want to learn from language, there's no better book in print ever than C.S. Lewis's book Studies in Words. I'm just going to like stomp for it right now. I don't get a percentage of it. C.S. Lewis doesn't give me, royalty kickbacks from the grave. The C.S. Lewis estate does not give me kickbacks, but I'm telling you right now, if you love language, then get this book, Studies in Words from C.S. Lewis. And once you read, one of the things that happens when you read this book is you start to think, you know what? These little weird things about language, I shouldn't hate them or make fun of them or even be frustrated from them. I should learn from them. And what this kid hopefully needs to get over time is just the maturity to stop and be more inquisitive rather than jumping to the conclusions.
Yes.
So you would say Catholics and other people that revere Mary, like the Eastern Orthodox tradition, worship Mary.
Well, they might not put her in the highest
But
place.
you would put it that way.
No.
You just said it. Now you're taking it back
There's
now?
still a hierarchy.
Okay, there's a hierarchy, but within the
There's something at the top.
All right, you can worship things
Mary
below.
is quite a ways up the hierarchy, but not at the top.
Let's go over your definition of worship again. What's your definition of worship?
Yeah, it really is like hard to listen to. Like if there's any part of this that's horrible, it really is this section. It's not JP's fault. This is not JP's fault.
When we were going like, well, then why don't you marry French fries? We were totally joking. I didn't realize this part was coming up, but I mean, he really did sort of end up at that level of analysis, because he's trying to get him to say, okay. He's so hyper about it. It's like, if you pay attention to something, then you worship it. You pay attention to Mary, therefore, syllogism. And JP's like, even if, because some people, I read almost nothing about this, but I did read somebody somewhere say that, oh, well, Jordan Peterson was temporarily, dumbstruck. Well, yeah, because what do you say to a person who's playing such a totally different game than you're playing? It's not, I mean, and how can you think that, even if you disagree with Jordan Peterson, and I agree with him on 90% of stuff, how can you think somebody gets to his position and is so dumb that they can't do the A equals B, B equals C, therefore A equals C? If you pay attention to something, then you worship it. You pay attention to Mary, therefore you worship Mary. Like, how do you not get it? Like, look at the look in his face. You are failing to recognize that I gotcha face, right? Well, if somebody thinks they got me that bad on something so stupid, I'm going to be nonplussed too, because how do you fix that level of misunderstanding? in that short.
Well, he mentions that this is like, and maybe you can speak to this. He mentioned, he goes back to like pointing out that there's a hierarchy, right? And so ultimately, what's at the top is what you worship, and there's things below that.
In the
And so
strictest
you
sense,
may,
yes, in the strictest sense.
yes. And so, but it's going to change like your level of worship. And so at some level, it's not going to count as worship to something that is lower on the totem pole, so to speak. Right.
Yeah. So, and we do this all the time. So supposedly, and I don't remember, I looked into it ages ago, but the passage, Jacob I've loved and Esau I've hated, that it's really more of a relative thing. And then also Jesus is talking about, you must basically like hate your family for my sake, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard atheists be like, oh, so Jesus is telling you to hate your family, ha ha, ha. But the idea is like our love for God is supposed to be so much higher than our love for anything else, that we could say sort of metaphorically, like our love for humans is hate compared to the love that we should have for God, right? Because our love for God is so much higher than our love for other things. And so you could say, yeah, I mean, I worship French fries, or pizza. My God, there are times when like if an alien just came down and didn't know like what was up, they would completely think I worshipped pizza. They would think my stack of pizzas in the freezer was like, they would think it was like an altar. Just
What
like
is
the
your favorite
tabernacle.
pizza? What is your favorite pizza? Now I'm super curious.
Easily. It's the Amy's. I get it delivered through Amazon's Whole Foods thing. It's Amy's organic 3-cheese pizza.
Is it frozen?
It's frozen and it's freaking wonderful. Now my favorite.
What? You eat
Oh
your
my God,
favorite
dude.
pizza in the world is a
Sarah!
frozen pizza.
Sarah, I'm gonna
You're
show
are you about to get me a box of pizza?
I'm not going to give it to you. I'm going to show it to you.
Well, you're not going to give it to me because
otherwise.
otherwise you're going to be out of it and you're going to have to order more of it.
No, I'm not going to be out of
that's-
it. I got a freezer full of it because I
Oh
adore
my
it.
goodness. How often do
Look
you
at that.
eat
Look at
this
what I
stuff?
did. I literally just said I adore it. And I was just, that was just me talking.
Gotcha.
But, do what? Gotcha. Oh, right. He's going to like send me an email. Ha ha ha. You adore pizza and you adore your wife. You like pizza as much as your wife. But my favorite, I don't have a favorite pizza out because I don't like any brand. I only eat like one-off bespoke, pizzerias.
Hey, we just got a super chat from Danny. Danny says he wants to talk to you.
I can't wait. That's funny. I did not anticipate that he had the super chat ability. That's awesome. I can't wait.
I'll see if I can do that in the background. Let's see. Yeah, well, show me your pizza.
It's coming. It's coming. Sarah just walked by.
All right, let me see
my
if I can
daughter's
get in
bringing it.
contact with
My daughter's handing
Danny.
it to
Hang
me.
on. Oh, there it is. Okay, have I seen that before?
I don't know, but it is amazing.
Tomatoes and basil. Okay. I'll have to get
Yeah,
some.
no, it is. Can you put some in, Sarah? No, to put it in. What time we're gonna be done? About.
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know. All right.
Just
Be
as
done
long
with
as
that
we
pizza.
want to talk, especially if we
That
get Danny
pizza.
on.
Now is he gonna get on and like? I hate to be this bad, but I thought a super chat was like a text, where somebody texts.
No, it's not a text. It's like when you send in a comment and you pay for it so that it like gets bigger on the screen and it like highlights it and stuff so that the creator
Right, but
can
I mean,
see
is
it.
he going to be on in like a caller and like on a call-in
He
show?
may
and we're
he
gonna
may
talk?
be he may be yeah, his video and microphone is going to show up and everything. Yeah, sometimes I have to explain this type of
Is
stuff
that
to
how it
boomers.
normally works? I have no. This is. I am learning this real time. I have no idea how this works.
Yeah, it's gonna look just like me on the screen. It's gonna look like another talking head, but it is going to be
That'll
Danny.
be awkward.
If
How do I know which ones? Thank God you've got your name on yours. If it's gonna look just like you.
yeah,
Is it like a filter? He's gonna get his little mustache.
let me see, Danny.
He's about 10, 15 years away from a mustache by the looks of it.
Danny, email me. Yeah, we'll see if we can get him on.
Sure.
Yeah, we did try to get him on earlier, but we'd love to have him on. I would love to. Okay, so let me put this up. Yeah, get back to some questions or some comments from Danny. It says, I've invited Trent on multiple times to my channel and he's ghosted me each time. So, dude, why are you ghosting him? You're scared.
I don't know. Is it through? What was it through? How did he contact me?
I don't know. All of this happened. Like I heard about this, but I told him.
How would I even check this?
Yeah, I told him it could have been Facebook. It could have been through Facebook. It could have been some email that he sent it to. I don't know exactly how he tried to contact you, but clearly, Trent, you did not know about this, right? You never knew that he tried to contact you.
Not that, no. I mean, here's my, I mean, most people who ask me on their shows do it through Facebook Messenger.
He could have sent you a request.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I have no idea. What's his freaking name?
Danny Phil Talk. I don't know what his last name is.
I typed in Danny, and he's not any of these Dannys that I'm aware of. And it goes down to Danny Z's, Danny's Otter.
Yeah, I'm still waiting to see if I get an email from Danny.
Tell him to message me now, for like this instant.
Well, I'm trying to get him on. We do have a mutual contact, and I messaged him, but he is not available right now. So I'm trying to figure out how to get in contact with Danny.
Somebody, I mean, yeah, tell him to
message me. He'll message me. He will email me. He'll figure it out. Otherwise, we'll keep talking.
Ghosted, I don't think this is. I mean, I'm not down with the hip lingo of the kids, but XIA. I think he just messaged me. So my last, that's that guy. Okay, cool. So I have, let's see. Oh my God. Oh, we've like talked a lot.
Dude, you are something else.
Well, how am I supposed to know? He doesn't have his last name on there.
Danny said, he says he's working on it. He's trying to email me. Okay.
So I said, when do you want to do it? My schedule's pretty tough.
Don't show his last name. Like, I think he's trying to keep that under wraps.
Sorry.
I don't think it showed up
when
on the
is
screen.
Good for you. So I'm like, cool. I get tons of invites. I don't think it's ghosting. I think it's more like the Irish goodbye. I end up ghosting many people because I get like hundreds of chats a month. So, but we've talked quite a bit. I like this guy.
Okay. Well, we're gonna have him on.
I like this guy.
He's gonna be on. This is the wrong scene, guys. It's gonna look a little bit different than this. Let me see if I can fix this. Let me add myself.
I'm getting people texting me not to talk to him. That's hilarious. Clip farm? What's clip farming?
This is probably going to wind up on X in multiple clips. Okay, Danny just emailed me. All right, here we go.
So I'm being told that he just wants to clip farm this, and I'm learning what clip farming. I'm trying. Now that we got 3 split screen, there we go.
Yeah, he will be joining us momentarily. All right.
I'm being told that he hates me, but I don't think he does. His chats were very nice.
Who is telling you this?
I'm getting like multiple texts here saying that this guy's a fake and he doesn't want to really talk. I don't know. I mean, judging from our messenger exchange, he seems like a nice, honest guy.
All right. Well, he is about to be added to the stream. I just sent him an invite. So we will.
Whoa, we've been talking for a long time. Oh my gosh. So his
There he
first one,
is.
I think I missed.
His name. Okay. There he is.
Where is he?
He is here.
Hey, Danny.
Hi, is my microphone working?
It is.
Yes.
I can hear you. What's up,
Okay,
dude?
why do I look so big? That must be a problem on my end.
It's
No,
on
you
your
look
end.
the
You've got.
same. Yeah.
Right, it's showing like I have a
Proportionally, you
big-
look about the same.
Okay, well, if we said unfortunately, huh?
Here, let me see. I can't. Yeah, I can't zoom out. So it's your webcam that
It's
you've
my
got zoomed
here.
in.
Let me. I don't want my forehead's big enough. I don't need it any bigger. Let's
No,
see.
no. Your forehead looks like super normal compared to Cameron's.
Oh, okay, that's good to hear.
All right, what's going
No,
on?
no.
What's up, Danny?
So
How's it going?
No, that's great to know to know this is who you are. That's great. So I don't think ghosted is fair. I think lost the thread is fair because I do get literally hundreds of chats and I try to keep up with them, but they just get buried. And when
We're
it
all
gets
busy.
buried,
We're all busy.
yeah.
I get it.
But you've been very consistent and 100% polite. Gosh darn
What?
it! I wish I would have done.
Yeah, I
Done
wanted you
this.
to, because when I was a Christian, maybe 8 years ago, I was thinking about studying philosophy, and
Yeah.
someone said a great recommendation is to study with Trent Dougherty at Baylor. And I looked into you, and I've
Really?
always been interested in chatting with you about some stuff. So that's the background.
Okay. Well, I've made some bunch of jokes about your age because when you get to be my age, you just do that.
How
When
old
you
do you think
get,
I
believe
am?
me, you look a lot older on this format than you did on that show. On the show, you
You
honestly, I
don't want to
thought,
guess? You don't want to
oh
guess?
no, no, I'll guess. I'll 100% guess. I'm just saying that in preface to that, I would have guessed about 19 on the whatever that Jubilee thing is, just maybe from the lighting or something. Right now, if I just met you right now, I would say 24.
I'm 32.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
you're very young looking 32. So
The
I
trick is
used
the
to
trick
be a
is not
very
to go
young
outside.
looking.
The trick is not to go outside.
Yeah, that's right. So I was once a very young looking 32. I was in my 20s for 20 years. So basically from like, no, for like over 20 years. So from like 18 to 34, I would consistently be considered to look in my 20s. So I was in my 20s for like 26 years. So it's a good
Well,
thing. It's a good thing.
yeah, I'm not
Trust me, when you
complaining.
get,
I'm not complaining.
oh, no. And the older you get, the less you will, because at my age, if somebody thinks you look younger than you are, it's like makes your day.
Well,
So
now
when
now
is
we got that
your
said.
show on is your show on a regular basis or is it occasional or is there like
It's very occasional. I've interviewed maybe 8 philosophers, Graham Oppy, Joshua Rasmussen, a couple other philosophers that it's been a while. You
yeah,
probably got
let me look at
messages
my
from
schedule right now.
you probably got messages from people like Inspiring Philosophy. Mike Jones, for some reason, slanders me and says that all I do is clips. That's not true. You can look at my content, right? I don't do that, right? Uh, I actually had an interaction with Mike Jones, and he didn't like how it went. And you can watch that, be the judgment. You can be the judge of what happened there. I'm not going to say anything more, but yeah, they're
I don't watch I'm not a big consumer of content, quite honestly.
Mhm.
But so your you don't have like a regular show where I could like just pop it on my schedule?
Nope. Like you, I have a full-time job. This is actually a
What do you
hobby of
do?
mine.
What do
I'd
you
rather
do?
not say. I will tell you if we talk privately. I will be very happy to tell you. But right now, I've got a lot of haters,
Okay,
so I'm.
that's fair. Thursdays are actually now that school is out, Thursdays are No, yeah. Now that school's out, Thursdays are pretty good.
Mhm.
We could do June
Well,
5th if I'm
we're
not.
doing something right now, but yeah, we could talk about the Peterson today if that's what you want to do, and then we could talk about philosophy, just general philosophy you wanted later. But I mean, at least
I
I
have
like
no
the
agenda.
idea.
I have
Okay,
no
well,
agenda.
all right. Well, let's just stick with the Peterson stuff. We'll work out the kinks of the other stuff later, maybe. Is that
Yeah.
okay with
So
you?
I do. Sure, yeah. Like I said, I've got no agenda. I'm not pretty
Okay. So,
easygoing.
um, when I heard your criticism about the gotcha, now look, I mean, did Socrates get Euthyphro? I mean, do you understand, when Euthyphro was given his definitions of piety, do you think that his first initial definitions, Socrates got him?
Yeah, I do. I actually do. I lost over time. In fact, I don't know that I coined it. Somebody probably beat me to it, but during the first few years when I was teaching incoming grad students at Baylor, I would talk about the what I called the Socratic fallacy, where the Socratic fallacy was thinking that there was some real benefit to having exceptionalist generalizations. Because I came from a school of philosophy. I mean, Chisholm was my
Roderick?
philosophical, grandfather, and all of my entire dissertation committee were UMEs, people from UMass, and so there was a lot of Gettier influence as well.
Oh, okay.
And I loved that kind of philosophy for the longest time, and then I became very disillusioned with it. And so, yeah, unfortunately, even though Socrates is in many ways a hero, the Socrates of the Apology, I find the Socrates of the Euthyphro and many other dialogues kind of a pathetic character, and it makes me sad.
Okay. I guess I'm pathetic then.
Well, it would be pathetic if you fully believed that that philosophy, in its essence and highest form, was the search for exceptionalist generalizations. I think that
Okay.
would
What
be
do you think I
sad.
was trying to do with the Mary point and the worship point? What do you think I was trying to do there?
I think you were trying to perform a reductio ad absurdum on what you took to be his definition
Okay. How?
by showing that his definition led to conclusions that he would find repugnant.
Do you think he would agree?
I do, probably, yeah.
Yeah. So, unto his own commitments show that he has a double standard with respect to the prompt, right? The prompt was that atheists worship things. Now, first of all, I think you would agree with me. Are you aware of the 4 prompts that he chose? He chose them. Jubilee didn't choose them.
I know, I'm not feigning it. I literally know nothing about this stuff.
Okay, okay. No, I just didn't know. So he chose these 4 prompts, and I'll try to see if I can do them by memory. The first one is that atheists really don't understand what they're rejecting. The second one was morality um, is and purpose can't be, I guess, derived from science or come from science. The third one is that everybody worships something, including atheists, even if we don't know it. And then the fourth one is that
Mhm.
atheists basically use Christian morality. Now, maybe with the exception of the first prompt, the thing is that I could agree to all of that, right? I could say, yeah, morality doesn't come from science. In fact, I'm sympathetic to that view. I don't think I don't use the scientific method to know whether I should donate to charity. If he defines worship in a way where I worship my wife, fine, right? If I hold to a kind of golden rule, although I think golden rules existed before Jesus, I'm fine to say that Jesus kind of made it popular, made it hot
Everybody,
again.
is there anybody? I think everybody knows. Most everybody should know that. I mean, in C.S. Lewis's, in the illustrations of the Tao appendix, he gives examples of the golden rule prior to Christianity. So I think
Hmm.
most informed Christians know that.
But what I want to say is that let's say I was inspired by Jesus to follow the golden rule, right? Um, Maybe the first one I don't to say that I don't. What is it exactly that I'm rejecting when I'm saying that I believe there are gods? Okay, maybe that's the only one that there might be some substantive dispute because I think I know what I'm rejecting. Um, but the point is that these prompts are crap, right? I mean there wasn't much to work with, right? When I was trying, go ahead. Did you want to say
So,
something?
well, I want to just to clarify. So the predicate is crap. So that names some property. Is there a synonym for that that predicate that would also pick out the same property?
I just don't see how. What I mean by that is, atheists and Christians disagree on stuff, right? Specifically on like the stuff on the existence, like the God exists. To focus on whether atheists worship in some way, right, is not to further the dispute. I mean, I could say, okay, Jordan Peterson, fine, I worship my wife. Okay, in the sense that you gave, I prioritize her, I sacrifice for her, and I attend to her. Okay, but we disagree on does God exist though? Like, did Jesus rise from the dead? Did he die for my sins? Right? That's the sort of stuff I would have expected to talk to with a Christian, and I think the whole atheist worship stuff doesn't further our dispute at all. In fact, it sounds like rage bait.
Doesn't further the dispute at all.
Mm-hmm.
So which dispute does it not further? It certainly furthers the dispute about whether or not atheists worship something.
No, but presumably we disagree. As I'm an atheist, you're a Christian, we disagree on stuff. If you define the word worship in the way that Peterson did, I'm going to agree that I worship my wife. Okay? But number one, I feel like usually when atheists use the term worship, we're talking about in a religious connotation or it pertains to deity. But I'm kind of with you that I don't really have joint necessary and sufficient conditions for worship. I think it's a nebulous term. But why would we spend our time getting, okay, what are these conditions of worship and do atheists worship, when I feel like the meat of the disagreement is Jesus God and did he die for my sins?
Yeah, I think we agree about that. I told Cameron earlier, and Cameron can attest to this, that if it had gone like I was originally thought it was going to go, where we would be co-guests on the show, that I was going to open with the statement that we agree about three things: that Jubilee should not have extended the invitation to him under the auspices that they originally did. He should not have accepted it. Secondly, and thirdly, we agree or we overlap in a lot of frustration with the Jungian sort of language that Peterson uses to when people ask him if he believes in God. Because I thought that what's that British atheist guy's name?
Cosmic skeptic?
The what? Yeah,
Cosmic skeptic?
yeah. Is that Alex? Is that
Alex
Alex
O'Connor.
Is that
Sorry,
the
yeah, I shouldn't
same?
say Cosmic skeptic. It's Alex O'Connor. He changed his name.
Okay. So I saw a clip. I think it was actually on your X is where I saw the clip of O'Connor, saying that, asking him the question that we all wanted to ask him, which was, if the camcorder was there, could you have gone up and did he come out of the tomb and could you have like poked him and would your finger have had some That's what we all want to know, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I tried moderately hard to get myself in a position to where I could ask him that question personally, because we do have
You talked to
one
Peterson as well?
No, I tried to. We have a common friend who's a very big name apologist. And I wanted so badly. Yeah, right. I wanted so badly to poke him in that same way and be like, look, man, I'm talking metaphysics here. Is there a thing out there that is God? And with Jesus, was he dead and then alive in a way, not just alive like the sound of music, but like, was he a meaty, fleshy thing? I mean, that's what I completely agree with you that it's very frustrating, almost infuriating that he talks the way he does about that stuff. Nevertheless, and yet, I think that I have learned some important things from him about the nature of belief and value in the midst of my frustration. Because I think, well, look, that when I was but a young lad in the Baptist church, I was not raised religious or anything. I had a Pauline conversion when I was 16. And we had these debates between lordship salvation of John MacArthur and the dreaded enemy, easy believism. And And there is and I don't know what your religious background was, but what kind of
I was
Christian
Southern
were you?
Baptist.
Yeah,
I
there
was
you go,
Southern.
man. I was too. Absolutely. So I think
You're
we've
from the
probably
South,
got a lot
right?
of common. I mean, I don't know. I was from northern Missouri. I don't know if
I'm
that's
from
or
Louisiana.
Missouri, as I would have said it.
I'm from Louisiana.
I think that's you
I was
win
raised in.
that. You win on. There you go. You win that round for sure.
Mhm.
Um, but I was, it is pretty frustrating that people will just so casually say they believe without any sense of the gravity that should go along with that. And even in my frustration about what seems to be metaphysical evasiveness on the part of Peterson, I had to ask myself, like, would the world be better if people were at least shifted in that direction and were a little more hesitant to say that they believed in God if they weren't willing to, you know, act like it? Because, gosh, I mean, it sucks when people say it and don't act like it. Whether
Mhm.
whether you experience that from the third person where somebody says it and don't believe it, or when we ourselves don't live up to our standards and we're like, gosh, dang it, man, I just brought shame to the name of Christ and frick, I almost want to deny being a Christian just to save Jesus the trouble and embarrassment. So
Mhm.
so I get it, man. I think we agree about those things. I just think where we disagree is where I think there's something very much to what he's doing and saying that I have found the ability to learn from. I'm
Yeah.
gonna I'm gonna move my lightsaber. Sorry, my chair
I,
has shifted, and my light.
I feel like there's two things going on here. There's what is the value of Jordan Peterson, and then how was his performance on Jubilee? I
Mhm.
and you probably just disagree. Or not. Well, just you would probably disapprove rather. I try to avoid Jordan Peterson content. I mean, I've heard clips, and sometimes he gets me to think. Like he said something about a couple weeks ago on some random clip that like talking out loud is easier than thinking internally, and he gave this whole explanation, and it caused me to think. I don't know if it was true or not. Like I'm not going to deny that there's some. I mean, he's a I called him nothing, but we can talk about that, what I meant there. But
That was a
obviously he's
little rough.
accomplished. Well, yeah, we could talk about it in a second. Obviously he has a PhD, right? He knows something. Okay, there's some things that I can learn from Jordan Peterson, and that's possible. But that's almost with like most people that I mean, like they're people that you probably don't respect that you could learn from, right? So we could
Yeah.
talk. So, anyways, there's that, and then there's okay, what happened in Jubilee? I have a hard time believing that you think he performed well on Jubilee.
He performed well along various scales of value, and that's consistent with saying he performed poorly along other scales of value. So I think that, and that's one reason why we're doing it the way we're doing it is we're going, very short segment by very short segment. And everything that we've covered on the show tonight, that is 100% of what I've seen of this outside of your X account.
Mm-hmm.
So so far I can only pass judgment on what I've seen so far. And in Zena's, I thought he was fair and attentive. And in yours, so far we haven't even gotten far enough for me
Mm.
to.
Did you
Honest to
see
God, I don't even
Parker's
really
exchange? Did you see Parker's exchange?
know.
The one where because here's what I'll say. I don't think I outmaneuvered Jordan Peterson on anything philosophical. It's not like I out intellectualized him. He shot himself in the foot. That's the story. In a way, I shot him in the foot, but he gave me the gun. Okay. So I think that his worst performance was the segment with Parker. I think that was
Okay,
a
well,
terrible. So
hey,
what do you want to
okay, let
review
me
it?
just hold on just one second. I want to get Cameron. Cameron, can you queue up the Parker one?
I
Um,
actually don't know what section that is from, Danny. The other
The
thing is that, I
morality
mean,
one?
yeah, okay. If you, I'm
You want
debating
me? I
whether or
can give
not we
you.
should play that because I don't want to get flagged by Jubilee and stuff. Like we
Oh,
had to
okay.
take it in short sections. That's why we were
well,
doing it the way that we were doing
Well,
it. So
Cameron, have
well,
you seen it?
I probably have seen that section. I watched.
You can take my word
I
for
think
it.
I've watched. Yeah, no, I think if you can
Cameron,
summarize what the
Cameron, why
conversation
can't we-
was.
Well, Cameron, hold on one second. Why can't we just take that piece in short? Because what I would love to do, my dream situation here, would be for you to do the same thing you've been doing in the short segments, and Alex and I comment on it kind of in tandem.
You mean Danny?
Because I'm interested. Now I'm interested. I'm sorry, Danny. Sorry.
Is he the guy who has the curly hair with the glasses?
No, he's the other twink. So I don't know how much
Does
you've been
he
on
have the
Twitter,
mullet?
Cameron. I don't know how to, I think I just described him the best way possible, but he's the guy that is going viral the second most, the guy that is going viral the second most after me.
Oh, was it the Hitler one?
Yes.
The lying one? The lying section? Okay.
Yes.
I know what you're
Before
talking
we
about
watch it, do you remember? You don't have to recall it, but do you
Yes,
remember?
yes.
Yes. How do you, before we watch it, if you could say it in like a sentence or two, like, and what's your judgment before we watch it? Because I think it's terrible. I think it was terrible.
Yeah, I think, you mean like with respect to like Jordan Peterson, how he did
his performance?
I thought it was I think this is probably the section where he like did probably the worst. So one of the things that he did is he like took really, he did kind of like the basic thing that a lot of like, people who are unfamiliar with philosophy do when they're faced with hypotheticals. He's like, oh, well, that hypothetical would never happen. Like that was kind of his response to a hypothetical. And for anyone philosophically minded, like that's just not what you do. So that was probably the cringiest part to me. You know, I think that's the one.
Yeah, I think we agree.
About, right?
I think honestly, the rest of his performance, you know, like, yeah, there was a mistake here, a mistake there. There was the thing with me, which is what went viral. But why don't we just watch it if we can?
Yeah,
Yes,
let me see if I can pull it up. Let me see if I can pull it up.
Like, what's the fine? I'll pay the fine, for God's sake.
No, they would just take the whole thing down. But let me see if I can pull it up here.
So, question: Did all 20 people get a time with Jordan Peterson? I have no idea how this works.
No.
How many total people got up there with him?
20, I believe, but I didn't count. Sorry. How many people? I'm sorry. How many people talked to him?
Got in the chair. Yeah.
Oh, I think about 8, maybe 7 or 8. They cut one girl off. Actually, she was my favorite, and I wish they included her. And we got to talk about that. I think that was actually, if they played that. I mean, I made sure with my NDA, I actually asked them what I could say and what I can't say. So I'm very much aware what I can and cannot say. But I'm free to tell y'all how that exchange went. I think that was, if they included that, I think Christians would have been in an uproar what he did. We should talk about that.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, let's play this.
How you doing?
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I guess since you said morality and purpose cannot be found in science, it would just depend on like what you're referencing. If you're saying a description of your psychological preferences would be considered within science, sure. But I don't think that you have to say that it comes from science in order to be like an atheist. As an agnostic atheist, I don't know if God exists and I don't believe that a God exists. And the only ones that I would really reject would be like the all-knowing, all-powerful, all-good, perfect notion of God that plenty of Christians like prescribe themselves. So I guess,
how is that relevant to this claim?
You're basing a position of morality and purpose in some like notion of God that isn't the same type of notion of God that typical Christians would prescribe.
So, Danny, do you think, again, I'm thinking about copyrights and getting strikes. Like, if we watch this whole segment, it's like 8 minutes long. Do you think it would be? Do you think we could skip forward to like the part where is that the specific part that you were thinking that would be like relevant?
It's a longer segment, right? And so
yes,
you can skip to whatever you want, Cameron.
Okay, I've just gotta
right, and if I feel like we skipped something, I kind of remember that there were 2 really bad parts. There was the circular definition, like what is belief thing, right? That segment we need to watch. I would suggest. And then the second one was how he handled the hypothetical question of should you lie to protect another.
Okay. I think we'll just keep watching and we'll pause along the way.
Okay.
Your notion of God is
What typical Christians?
Yeah, typically when I talk to Christians, they say that they believe in an
How
all-knowing.
about Cardinal Newman, who defined God as conscience? He's a major influence on all of Catholic social theory. How about that Christian?
Sure. So do you believe in the all-knowing, all-powerful, all-good notion of God?
What do you mean by believe?
Do you think it to be true?
Oh man.
That
Okay, so that's not good to ask him that question. I think we'd agree, right?
No, I wouldn't agree with that because he's aware that his notion of belief is different than the one that philosophers typically use, and I think he thinks that the philosophical notion is very conceptually thin, and I think he's got some evidence for that in the way that philosophers will talk about belief as, like merely a representational state. And so I can understand how, as an outsider to philosophy, he could definitely look at some of the things, a lot of the things that philosophers say about belief and think, well, that's not belief because belief is essentially action guiding, and that wouldn't necessarily be action guiding. And belief integrates into your personality and who you are. And that thing, a mere representational state, doesn't do that. Something just in virtue of its semantic content doesn't do that, etc. He doesn't think the thing that philosophers call belief plays the right functional role.
But he's interpreting Parker. He's interpreting Parker there, right?
No,
he's trying
I don't
to
think
understand.
so. Trying to understand. Yes, yeah.
He's trying to understand what Parker is saying, right? He wants to
Right.
know, what does Parker mean when he's asking me, do I believe in an all good, all powerful, all knowing God? Right now, but
Right.
why wouldn't he just go to the natural interpretation, where it's the sense of belief that, do you believe that we're having a conversation?
I don't think that is. I mean, the more and more I deal with, people outside of academia, I mean, they're all over the place on what counts as belief. And
I agree.
I'm
I agree, but the point is that, like, he's not. It's what Parker. It seems like what's very obvious is that, he's giving this definition of God in terms of conscience. If I'm or conscience, I forgot what particular, right. And then Parker's like, okay, he defined God as conscience. Now I just want to know if he's like a traditional monotheist, okay, where omni God, right? That's what Parker wanted to know.
Yeah, but I think that Peterson is shot through with the notion of value. And I think he thinks that to talk about mere belief in that sense is harmful to the world. I really think he thinks that because I've read all of his books, including Maps of Meaning. I've listened to hundreds of hours of his videos. I really
Well,
think
let
he
me
thinks
be
it's.
clear on something. I'm not suggesting that Peterson knows what Parker means exactly, or thinks he knows, or that he's being dishonest here. It's just very strange to ask him in this context when Parker got thrown off. You can tell Parker got thrown off by this alternative understanding of God as conscience. Parker is just, we're just normal kids here, right? We don't like God as conscience. Like, okay, do you think this God is powerful, good, knowledgeable? That's, to me, like, I feel like even if Peterson thought that, accepted everything that you said, I believe you. It seems like you know a lot about Peterson. Like, it just seems a little bit strange at the least, and at the worst, changing the subject.
Well, I don't think so. Now I will say I'm not, and I'm not just a side comment. I'm not a Newman scholar by any stretch of the imagination, but I have done scholarly work on Newman. That's a complete misrepresentation of Newman, I can assure you. I don't think there's anybody who's read Newman from a philosophical and theological traditional background that would like that representation of Newman at all. So I was personally a little triggered by that. So that's pretty frustrating to me. I would really want to query JP, like, do you really think that Newman thinks this in a particular way? So that's the part that triggered me. I think he does at least suspect that what's this guy's name? Parker?
Parker.
I think he does suspect that Parker is using this philosophically vapid sense of belief, and he wants to get that on the table. So I don't think in a dishonest way, but I do think he wants to get it on the table, because what he typically does is he will get the person who's pressing him on this metaphysical sort of belief to sort of describe it. And it's hard. It is. Look, it really truly is hard to describe the notion of belief as traditional epistemologists and philosophers of mind think of it without making it sound pretty vacuous. I mean,
Okay,
that's
so I guess our disagreement is that you want to say it's not changing the subject here to get into very because then it's true. I agree with you. Like, what belief is actually, is it normative? Is it non-normative? Right? Is there aboutness? Is there an aboutness property? Blah blah. Like there's all these questions about what the nature of intentionality is and how belief. I just feel okay. So we disagreed that he's not changing the subject. The thing is that what would have been the harm to say yes or no?
well, I think I have an answer to that. And I think that it is that he is really, really scared to to cross that threshold. Because I think that he understands that it's already bad enough that they're calling him a Christian, And I think that he thinks if he becomes known as a Christian truly, that he's going to undergo a level of scrutiny that he's never undergone before. So I love Russell Brand. I mean, I love Russell Brand like a brother from another mother. There's so many similarities between his background and my background, and his personality and my personality. We're both addicts. We're both people who have completely lost control of ourselves at times. And I think his conversion is very genuine. But holy cow, man. I mean, now that the level of scrutiny that he's undergoing now that he's professing Christian faith is a whole new thing. I mean, even trying to put him in jail, for goodness sakes. And I think that Jordan is a little scared to profess Christian faith, because then he becomes a sort of representation for it, and then all of his faults get attributed to Christ, because it really sucks to be a Christian and to have your faults, be used against the Christian faith.
And
Just like it
if what you're
sucks
saying
that,
is true, if what you're saying, sorry to interrupt, if what you're saying is true, he should have never accepted this gig.
agreed, 100%
Yeah,
agreed,
Trent said
100%.
that earlier.
You're right. Okay. And by the way,
I'm in agreement with that as well too. Like
I talked to
don't-
the Jubilee. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Cameron.
No. I think you're about to answer what I was gonna ask you.
Oh, I talked to the Jubilee people today, actually, and they did make it clear through Peterson's team that he was to be the hero of Christianity, the one Christian. So if there was, let's just rule out the hypothesis that he's being dishonest. I don't think that hypothesis is very strong. I'm more inclined to Joe Biden 2.0 than I am Jordan Peterson being dishonest. I think that his team really screwed up. That's one hypothesis, right? But the Jordan Peterson's team was given the production title of one Christian and asked, could he be that one Christian? So it was on Jordan Peterson's side, right, that there was something went wrong, right? And so
Sure. I think that's undoubtedly the case. So I run a decent sized business now. I have many layers of management between me and the individual jobs. And I have and his is, good Lord, I can't imagine the size of his, organization. And there are, many, many times when I have been in a hurry and I've had things scheduled for me and they've been described to me in a certain way, and I'm not paying, I'm just like, okay, sounds good. Let's do it. And because he's fine. He's got this series of lectures he did on the Bible in like 21, and then he's got this "We Who Wrestle with God" thing. And I could see how, as his chief of staff is like going down through the list of invitations and things, they'd be like, "And you're going to be the one representing the Christian position." Like, okay, I can do that. I do that all the time. Yeah, I think the Christian position is great. So I've got more, I think maybe more sympathy for. We agree that his team made a mistake, 100%, and that in some
or he
respect
did.
he bears
But
some
there's
responsibility.
you said you saw my commentary because before we were all here before they started filming, and they said, "Hey, welcome everyone, welcome to One Christian versus 20 Atheists." Peterson said kind of smirked, looked around and said, well, some people, wouldn't agree, or some people wouldn't consider me to be one, right?
Yeah.
So there might have been a mess up on the team, but
But he's already there at that point. Yeah.
Okay, well, I think we sort of agree that the fault was not completely with Jubilee, right? Seems like it was Peterson or his team or both.
Yeah.
That is his fault. Okay.
Yeah.
Look, we've discussed
For sure.
just this question a lot. I don't know what kind of pacing you want, Cameron. Because there's a lot.
We can move on. Yeah, we can move on. Was there any other parts in this first section that you wanted to get to, or should we?
He's about to mess up here. He's about to mess up.
Okay.
Here. He's going to. Okay. Mm-hmm.
That's the circular definition. What do you mean
How
when
is
you
that
say
circular?
you believe?
How is that circular?
Oh, did we?
Because you
what?
added no.
Did we hear it? Did you catch how he defined that? How Parker defined belief there, Trent?
I did not. I was attending to something else.
Back
I didn't.
about 10 seconds.
They say that they believe in an
How
all-knowing.
about Cardinal Newman, who defined God as conscience? He's a major influence on all of Catholic social theory. How about that, Christian?
Sure. So do you believe in the all-knowing, all-powerful, all-good notion of God?
What do you mean by believe?
Do you think it to be true?
That's the circular
to be true.
definition. What?
Yeah. So Aquinas defined to believe as to think with assent. So I don't think that there's any good reason to think that this is circular, unless he's thinking that to think is to.
I think it's just a mistake, Trent. It's just it's not circular. It's a mistake. You can say it. It's a mistake.
I didn't say whether I thought it was a mistake or not. I was
But it
hypothesizing
is.
what
It's
it
not
what it
circular.
was he was thinking.
I think you're
If
being way
you-
too charitable to him.
Well, I think you're not being charitable enough. And here's
Okay.
here's-
Do you think
here's
it's a
my-
mistake?
here's
Do you
why-
think if I said that?
Here-
Go ahead.
Hold on. I want to just slow down for just a second, just because this is a point that I've said many times. I think that I learn more by being too charitable than I do by being not charitable enough. And so
Okay,
I
I can respond to that. Right. I see that.
I
and
will
sometimes,
frequently. And so I think I really puzzle over before I pass judgment. I really puzzle over what was he thinking. Does he think that? And I hypothesize and I think through it, because it's not like I've heard him say this before. It's something. Well, if you thought that thinking was to entertain a proposition as true and to believe it was, I can get myself in a position to where I could see how somebody could think of thinking and believing as being the same thing. Do you think, when we in ordinary language say, do you think that do you think that Trump will be reelected, right? We could rewind the tape, play it back as, do you believe that Trump will be reelected? And it's the same freaking question. So there are definite. So here's what I believe that I've learned thinking through this live right now. That to think that and to believe that are synonymous in certain contexts, and that's already enough to say, well, then I can kind of see how we could think it was circular. I don't think it's circular, but I can see how it's forgivable to think that it's circular. It's non-crazy.
mistakes are
to think that it's
forgivable.
circular.
Right. But look, if you say it's forgivable, it's a mistake.
Yes, correct.
Okay, so we agree it's a mistake. And I feel like, look, and I kind of agree with you that, especially if someone like, someone that is philosophically informed, erring on the more charity side than the less charity side is better. But what I suspect is that you're being way more charitable to Peterson than people like Ian or me right now. That's how I feel.
Ian?
At least I could be wrong.
Ian?
Another person that you were reviewing, another guy. But I just feel like your charity is so generous towards Peterson, and I feel it's less charitable towards your opponents.
I think if you look at some of my other discussions of people that I disagree with, you will find that the pattern isn't whether I agree or disagree. The pattern is sort of how patient that person is being at the time. So when I was a teacher, I had completely opposite reputations in certain respects with undergraduates and somewhat with graduate students, but it didn't come up with graduate students that much. If somebody in class, and it had nothing to do with whether they agreed or disagreed, but if somebody in class was humble and made some silly statements, I would usually say, perhaps you mean this, perhaps you're getting at this, and try to help lift them up, right? And if some kid who was actually smarter than that kid would make a true statement, but do it in an arrogant way, I would quickly reduce them to bumbling nonsense.
But you could do that in a charitable way. Right. You
Maybe,
can
maybe
reduce
not. I don't
someone
know.
reduce someone into rubble and not compromise on charity.
Perhaps. I mean, I was being charitable in the sense that I feel like I was teaching them a valuable lesson, but I was not being nice by any stretch of the imagination. And so I don't know if you've seen my discussion with Eric Wielenberg online,
The
but
Platonist.
I think maybe he's probably a Platonist. Yeah,
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised.
moral
You think
Platonist, I
that,
think.
that's probably right. That's probably right. And that's like super duper respectful. But also, if you see my exchange with a certain Thomist, Cameron, start naming contemporary Thomists. This guy's really famous, and I got really
Ed Phaser.
yes, dude, Ed Phaser and I mean, I was like, I roasted the guy, and I on stuff that I completely agree with him on. So I'm more like energy. My energy matches the energy of the person than it is agree or disagree. In fact, Cameron can vouch for when we were talking about content for us to do on capturing Christianity. I said, can we please get on some Christian apologists who annoy me so I can beat them up? And that's basically the way
You and I are
put it
similar.
exactly.
We're both gotcha boys, right?
I think that
You like
there's a
beating
sense in
people
which
up. You like beating people
I
up. It looks like I do. Except mine are more elderly. It looks like, but you and I are the same. We're in the same fold.
I said that to Cameron. I said that to Cameron. I said we're actually very, very similar in many respects.
All right.
And so here's a proposal. Okay. I proposed a regular segment on somebody's channel somewhere. I don't know, yours or Cameron's or whatever, somebody else's, where we take turns having on theists and atheists, where I pick a theist that I don't really like what he's doing or saying in some ways, and then I am sort of the bad cop and you're the good cop. And then we pick an atheist where you kind of don't like what he's saying, you don't like his vibe or their content in some way or something, and then you're the bad cop and I'm the good cop.
You said you're
I
proposing
think
to do
that
that?
would be. I did
Oh.
is I hereby
He's
officially
proposing some
propose
content.
that as a.
Yeah, well, we could talk about it. I mean, when I left Christianity in 2020, I still argued with. I was notorious for art. You know, if Jerry Fodor's arguing against natural selection by any chance, it's not very commonly discussed.
Is
anymore.
it the one about where if my beliefs don't aren't genuinely causal for my actions, then it's the end of the world and everything doesn't. I mean,
He has a lot of critique. Fodor has a lot of critiques of evolution. So maybe I'm not saying you're wrong, but we don't have to get into it. But the point is that I ran it and it really made a lot of atheists angry. But I think it's sound. So yeah. I mean, look, there are people,
and there's this one clown, total clown, Randall
Randall Rouser.
Rouser.
Yeah.
What an absolute ass clown that guy is.
Well,
so we could have him on. I mean,
maybe
am I wrong?
maybe, but let's continue. But I don't think the point is that he accused him of a circular definition, and then as we'll see, he realizes it's wrong. And I guess I'm not super critical here, but it would have been nice to see a good personality trait for him to say, "Oh yeah, you're right. You didn't give a circular definition." I think I would have done that. I think you would have done that, right? But he doesn't do that.
Sure, but I don't think that Peterson thinks he made a mistake, and I don't think he.
Listen to him. Listen to the next 30 seconds or 5 seconds actually.
No,
What do you mean?
At this point, I'm just saying at that point, I don't believe he had made a mistake. I have no idea what's coming. So.
Really? Okay. I thought you said it was forgivable. I'm sorry, Cameron. I thought you said it was forgivable.
I said insofar as he made a mistake, it would be a forgivable mistake because of of the way that philosophers present both belief and thought, or the fact that in ordinary language, the verb to think and the verb to believe are used synonymously. From that, I believe you can build a very solid argument that insofar as he's mistaken, and I do think he's mistaken here, although I could be mistaken for all I know. I could be the one with the wrong concept of belief. I
Wait,
could be
sorry.
the one that has
Just to clarify. So he didn't. You're not convinced he made a mistake here, but he's in the wrong. Did I hear?
No, I'm convinced he made a mistake, but I am not certain that he made a mistake.
I feel like maybe I misheard everything. I thought okay, but that's fine.
He said that at the very end. He said that at the very end that he admitted he made a mistake.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But at the beginning, it sounded like he was saying that he didn't make a mistake. So that I can see why.
I'm a little confused, but we're on the same page now, right? Okay. We're confident, but we don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Correct. Well, I don't know about no. I don't like
Trent,
no. I'm not certain.
Trent, you're confusing me, man. Right? Which one is it?
No.
My young mind can't keep up.
That's right. That's right. So I am very big into distinctions between normative properties in epistemology. So I believe, I'm trying to find my mirror. I believe that he made a mistake.
Okay.
I'm confident that he made a mistake.
Okay.
I don't like no, because I think I don't like the concept of knowledge generally, or the predicate knows, but I'm certainly not certain that he made a mistake.
Okay.
So
okay.
all I was saying was that as you ratchet up as you turn the knob up of normativity, my negative judgment goes down.
That makes sense.
But I think that's perfectly expected.
But when I'm about to predict, I want to know your opinion, because I think he kind of recognizes he made a mistake, and he
okay,
and then does not. I again, not everyone says, "Oh, I'm sorry," but it would have been a nice personality trait to say, "Yeah, you're right. You didn't, or are you secular? I misheard." Right? But he doesn't do that.
I promise to be unambiguously ruthless in my judgments.
Okay.
Coming up through here.
And equally charitable to all parties.
Circular.
Because you added no
That's
content
right.
to the answer by substituting the word true and believe.
I said you think it to be true.
All right. So if
What's
you
a belief?
believe something, you stake your life on it.
What do you mean by that?
So is it the where he says, "All right"? Can you play that last bit again? Because it prima facie, it's plausible that it's kind of like a whatever.
Be true.
All right. So if
let me back up
goes
just a
by
little bit
pretty
more. We'll
quick.
play
I
one more.
mean,
by substituting
yeah, back up just a little bit more.
the word true and believe.
I said you think it to be true.
All right. So if
What's
you
a belief?
believe something, you
Substituting true and believe, because he said belief is to think that it's true, and so you substituted believe for true. It's pretty syncopated. I mean, the script reads incorrectly, but
Yeah.
I mean,
but in this
the
case-
idea that he did. I'm not sure that I'm trying to think about what probability I assign to the proposition that his sort of like whatever move was admitting an error versus saying this is a fruitless
Or
If
I
it's
misheard.
so on.
Yeah, he might look. He
Or
might
misheard.
have. Yeah, I don't know what happened, but look, if I were to ever, Trent, if we and I are in a debate, and I said you just gave an uninformative or a circular definition, and then it turns out that you didn't, I would be like, at least it would be good of me, virtuous of me, to say, oh yeah, I was wrong, I misheard, right, my bad. But
So
he doesn't do that here.
Well, technically, what you said was not quite right. It wouldn't be that if I said that you had given a circular definition and it turned out that you hadn't, I would offer an opinion. That's not sufficient. I would have to believe or acknowledge or understand that I had made the mistake.
Wait, what are
Okay?
we disagreeing
It's
on?
not So I don't know that Jordan Peterson takes himself to have made
okay.
a mistake here.
Okay, but the point,
It's
whether
a pretty
he makes,
quick thing. I mean, it's like a little. I mean, it's almost more like a noise than a.
I
no,
think we
I'm
might.
not saying. Go ahead, Cameron.
I think we might want to skip forward to the other part because I feel like that's way more egregious.
That's probably right.
The bit about hypothetical, it's more interesting, I think, a little bit. So let's skip forward to this section. I don't know exactly when it starts, so we'll have to just see.
I could ask you.
It's just a basic
yeah,
hypothetical
like you
put an intractable moral choice that's stripped of context. And
ever be a circumstance logically that lying could save someone.
yeah, and if you're steeped in sin, you're likely to live in circumstances like that.
I'll give you an example. If you're like in like
One thing I'd like to know is
catch
why
that?
he's so angry. That's
Yeah,
one thing I'd
he's
like to
actually
know.
dude, I
angry
was
that-
literally just thinking the same thing. Like, he
I
seems
think I actually
really
now this is weird.
unnecessarily agitated.
Wait, well, actually, this is strange. I actually think he's just kind of being passionate here, like sin, like he's talking about sin. Like I didn't actually interpret. I know maybe I'm the crazy one, but I thought he was just kind of like really like almost like expressing emotion other than an anger, like a seriousness. Like this is serious shit. I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt here. But
It read as anger to me, but
yeah, no, that's
angry,
fine.
I'm an angry person, so
I feel like he was just like telling a story. Like he was like telling like
he gets grim.
The
He
evil
does.
goblin, that kind of like
Yeah. I mean that fits his general nature of discourse. It does. So,
but he does come across. He does come across as angry. He does come across as angry. But look, did you hear what just happened? Right? He basically gave him the whole controversy is should you lie in certain should you be an absolutist about lying being morally wrong. And so Parker gives the example in what about cases where it's to protect another or protect yourself, like survival or whatever. And then he says, it gives the hypothetical, the Nazi hypothetical or something like it, and then says, well, I would never, basically what he says, I would never find myself in that situation because I wouldn't be so steeped in sin.
Or I think later on he also says that he would have gotten himself out of that situation before the Nazis would have approached him.
Yeah, he does say that too. But
okay, later on.
Mm-hmm. But to me, I mean, have you taught ethics courses, Trent?
I've not taught ethics courses. I've taught ethics sections.
Okay. But the point is that this is like, to me, an abysmal response to this kind of moral dilemma. I would want your opinion.
Yeah. I agree.
I probably agree, but I haven't heard the clip yet. The part where he says I don't doubt that he says what you're saying he says. I just haven't heard it. Is there?
We just heard it.
And it is the case of.
Let's just continue watching this section. We can pause more and talk and chat a little bit more, but let's just keep listening.
There's like Jewish people in your attic and you're trying to protect them. Example. Would you lie to like the Nazis?
I would have done everything I bloody well could, so I wouldn't be in that situation to begin with. It's a hypothetical, and it's not.
I mean that's the gist of this whole section.
Yeah, I mean you can't do that. Yeah, I don't know why he wants to avoid that, honestly.
But this is like an F minus. This is one of the worst responses I've ever heard to this kind of moral dilemma, that I wouldn't be so steeped in sin. Like, because think about what this means. Harriet Tubman, who probably lied to a bunch of racist people to save, runaway slaves, right? When she deceived those people, right? She must have been steeped in sin. So Harriet, also Corrie ten Boom, that family who saved hundreds of Jews on the walls of their home, right? They must have been steeped in sin. What about Oskar Schindler, saved thousands, right? Steeped in sin. Like, that's what the conclusion of what he's saying. It's insane.
So I heard the steeped in sin comment, but unfortunately it came before this one, so it seems it's out of sequence for me.
I'm sorry, Cameron. Can you play the whole thing again, Cameron?
Please.
Let me see.
Yeah, and if you're steeped in sin, you're likely to live in circumstances like that.
I'll give you an example. If you're like,
just go back 5 to 10 seconds before that statement. I want to see what sets up that exact statement.
You wouldn't lie to save your life?
Don't be so sure.
You wouldn't lie to save your life?
How much do you know about me? I didn't lie to save my career. I didn't lie to save my clinical practice.
Would you lie to like save your children, your mom, your dad?
I don't think lying would save them.
Can there ever be a circumstance logically that lying could save someone?
Yeah, and if you're steeped in sin, you're likely to live in circumstances like that.
I'll give you an example. If you're like in like Nazi Germany, and it is the case that there's like Jewish people in your attic and you're trying to protect them,
example.
would you lie to like the Nazis? If
I
they're
would have
asking?
done everything I bloody well could, so I wouldn't be in that situation
you
to
lie?
begin with. It's a hypothetical.
Yeah,
It's
I
not
don't-
Answer
answerable.
hypotheticals.
I don't know what the hell he's trying to say there as far as the steeped in sin part. I don't think he's attributing being in that position to being steeped in sin. So there's a difference between saying, if you find yourself in that position, you must have been steeped in sin. What he appears to be asserting is, if you're steeped in sin, you'll find yourself in that position.
You're
So
like
I-
he does.
but I
He
don't-
says probably. He does say likely, but it still functions terribly. The point is that I don't think I KO'd Jordan Peterson in the way that, like, philosophically, this is the most embarrassing part of the entire 2 hour, 1 hour and 30-minute exchange. This is embarrassing.
Okay, that's embarrassing. 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 Maybe embarrassing. Yeah. So let's suppose I say, yeah, this is embarrassing, and you said the most embarrassing part of the how long did you say?
Hour and
How long is
28
the show?
minutes.
Yeah.
1 hour and 28 minutes. So 88 minutes. And how long was this? That section was like less than a minute. So
Well, the whole
one
section,
over-
the whole section's about 8 minutes.
Yeah, but the whole section wasn't that statement.
No, that statement was about
But
a
who's
minute.
saying that? Look, the point
30
is
seconds.
that it's a giant blemish, right? It's okay, right? You can have a whole nice bohemian carpet, right? Right. Actually, I have a flat screen TV. I actually knocked something into the TV, and now 2 pixels. All right, like it's like the TV's like little ruined in my opinion. Maybe y'all are different, but the point is that it's if you take Peterson's performance like a bohemian carpet, right? This is a shit stain.
What's a bohemian carpet? I don't know this phrase.
Is that not a phrase? Maybe it's like a very fancy carpet, really expensive carpet.
What's
Am I
a
off on
bohemian
that?
carpet?
Oh, okay. Now I'm Google imaging it.
Also known as a boho rug, is a type of rug that has a lot of patterns and designs. They are often made of wool or cotton and are popular in many different types of homes.
It just says a type of rug that has a lot of patterns and designs. I've never heard that phrase in my life.
Well, you learned something from a child, so that's good. You know.
There you go.
Okay.
But I would think that a rug that had many patterns and designs would be the least likely to be ruined by a single stain. In
It's
fact,
a shit
isn't that
stain,
why-
though. Look, Trent is a shit stain.
I mean, does it look like a shit stain?
Look, if it's a wine stain, you're right, but this is a shit stain.
I'm just saying. How do I know it's a shit stain versus a wine stain?
I think the
It's-
pixel. I think the pixel
dog.
analogy is maybe
Somebody
better.
stepped
No,
on
I like
a
my
hot
The
shit
pixel
dog.
stain
analogy
because
is
look,
good.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I would think that a teenager could answer this much better. A teenager would say, "Yes, I would lie to save my family."
Well, that's a different point. So, for example, my former colleague, Alex Pruss, I think is an absolutist about lying. And he's the smartest human I've ever met, and probably the kindest and dearest human that I've ever met. So there are people that hold this position that I find mind-boggling, that are smarter and better people than me. So the position itself, I don't think is a stain. I don't, and then the steeped in sin thing, I just don't understand. I don't.
Well,
get
look.
how that
Forget about
comes
this.
to me.
Forget about this. Like, let's take the trolley problem. The classic trolley problem. You, being a professor, have heard so many responses to that trolley problem. You probably heard it from responses from children. You've heard
Yeah.
it from the highest of professional philosophers, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay,
Yes.
this is like I don't think I've ever heard a response as bad as this one. Have you?
Um,
And you're
I mean, he
you're a
says-
professional philosopher. You're a philosophy professor. You have a lot of experience.
So which
I've
response are you
had-
referring to, Danny? Are you referring to
Trolley problem. If someone
No. Are you referring to his response where he was like trying to avoid the hypothetical, or are we talking about the steeped in sin part?
No, basically, all Parker's doing is giving a simple moral dilemma. And what I know, since Trent is a professor, he's heard responses to the trolley problem. It's a right. So imagine Jordan Peterson giving because the pulling the lever. Oh, well, I would never be so steeped in sin. I would have to pull a lever to save a person, right?
So the steeped in sin part is what you're referring to. Have you heard?
But I just don't know how that comment is functioning. I'm completely agnostic.
I'm asking, you've heard a lot of responses to the trolley problem. If you heard a response like this is bottom 2% of responses.
Bottom 2%. I mean, it's super annoying when people won't answer hypotheticals because in virtue of being hypothetical.
No, the steeped in sin response
But here's my statement about that. My statement about that is that I have no idea how that statement is functioning.
He's saying, look, I'm too virtuous to find myself in that situation. That's what he's saying.
No, I don't think that's what he's saying at all.
Oh, we disagree.
What is he saying?
I just said it. He's saying
Trent. No. I'm asking Trent.
Oh, sorry.
No, I just said
You just don't know.
No,
you just don't think is that.
I don't know where he's going with it. Yeah.
Okay.
He certainly did not say the sentence, I'm too virtuous, nor did he say only people who are steeped in sin would ever find themselves in that. What he said was, if you are steeped in sin, you find yourself in that sort of position. But that's different than that. That's the converse of, if you find yourself in that position, you're steeped in sin. So it's not even of the right, his statement isn't even of the right logical form to level the accusation that
I'm Danny. My name is Danny. Yeah.
That Danny is saying. So I'm just extremely puzzled. I'm old. I got Alex frickin' O'Connor's name.
Well, first of all, he said probably, right? So it's not like it's a deductive thing going on. I think that would be a little bit worse. But he's saying that the way I interpret the situation is, here's a moral dilemma. And he's saying, well, I wouldn't find myself in that moral dilemma. And then he gives an explanation. The explanation is that people that find themselves in this dilemma are steeped in sin.
No, he said people that are steeped in sin can find themselves in that dilemma. That's my biggest puzzle, is that he answers with the converse of what you're saying. And obviously those things are not logically equivalent. And I'm just puzzled why he would answer with the converse. If he had said people in that position are steeped in sin, at least it would be a statement of the right logical form.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Right. He's got the antecedent and consequent mixed. Right. But
so I'm just puzzled. Yeah. I mean, I'm just puzzled. I don't know.
But what do you? But my interpretation is reasonable.
I will say, if your interpretation is correct,
it's bad.
It's a very deeply morally repugnant thing to say, and I would be deeply disappointed and ashamed.
Okay, and
then let's see if we can skip forward and see if he clarifies later on, because I feel like they talked about this for a while. Let me just play a little bit more.
To save people's lives. So your definition of truth isn't actually how we're typically using it. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to muddy the waters. When I ask you, do you believe this? Do you think this to be true? So you don't actually have to answer the questions. And plenty of Christians don't like that because they clearly see that you don't really want to be associated with Christianity.
I can imagine that I was in a situation where the best I could do as a consequence of my previous mistakes was to tell the least amount of lie I could manage. But that would likely indicate that I had made all sorts of catastrophic errors on my way there.
What does that provide? I want to know your interpretation of that. I think that's clear.
It favors Alex. God damn it! It favors. Sorry, God. Now I got to go to confession. It favors Danny's hypothesis. Yeah. Danny. It favors Danny's hypothesis.
It does. I'm favored. I'm the favored one here. The kid. The chosen one.
That's right. It is the highly favored one. It is unambiguous that this statement favors his hypothesis, yes.
And it's bad, like you said. So we should change the title of this video. Peterson does not. I mean, this is a shit stain.
It is a moment of that. It appears to be a moment. It appears to be a moment of that, yeah. But I mean, I don't know how to judge the whole thing yet because I've watched so little.
Fair enough. You haven't seen the whole thing. Fair enough.
Yeah. So where do we go from here? Should we talk about?
I want to know
the
if we're going to do
worship.
this show where we play good cop, bad cop.
I can't give an answer here. You know, I'm kind of a big deal right now, Trent. I'm just messing. I'm just messing. I actually have gotten so many. I'm overwhelmed. So you're gonna have to give me a couple
Does your
weeks.
office smell of rich mahogany
I wish, right? I wish.
and the
But no,
smell of
I'll
leather-bound
be glad
books?
to talk to you privately. And you have,
Okay.
I messaged you on Facebook. You have I have no problem. I'm
Yep.
very accessible. And I know, I think our mutual friend Cameron and I's mutual friend is told me that you work a lot. So I understand, right?
Yeah, I'm a workaholic and I've got a very, very busy business and it's frustrating. I'm trying to automate some of the processes and I've made a couple of hires recently to take some time off my plate. I'm pretty dedicated to working less and doing more stuff like this.
While you're here, Danny, let me ask this super chat that was sent in. Danny, do you feel that you have a personal animus against Jordan Peterson, like people keep saying?
Wait, Trent. There's a problem here. What does "feel" mean here?
Yeah, that's
Trent,
annoying.
go ahead. I can't go on. I can't answer. Go ahead, Trent. What's "feel"?
I think he means believe.
Give a non-circular definition.
Look, I'm tired.
To affect
Peterson,
to perceive to affectively receive is true.
all right, Peterson is exhausting. To me. So I mean, before this whole ordeal happened, I didn't really hate him. I was just not very disinterested.
Uninterested, uninterested, not disinterested.
Thank you.
I was an English teacher before I was a philosophy teacher.
Trent,
and
this
that
is why
one-
I wanted to take a class from you right back 8 years ago, right? I would have not made that mistake.
That's right. That's a big one. And phenomena versus phenomenon, singular and plural.
And curious, the little ankle biters that texted you not to talk with me, do you think they were right?
No, clearly not.
Clearly not. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, let me get another super chat in here. I hear people commenting how disrespectful the atheist kids were. Maybe there was some of that. I found Peterson equally condescending and invasive.
At times, yeah. I mean, the weird thing is he goes back and forth. He's very moody. And notice that he's admitted on many, many occasions that he's highly neurotic and subject to rapid mood swings. And I think we see that on display here for sure. He's really back and forth on his moods. It's a bad day when it comes to mood shifts for him, no doubt about it.
Cameron, what's the time like? What do you want to do? How much time do we have?
I think I actually do need to wrap up soon. So
Okay.
we've been in Trent as well, but
I appreciate you accepting me when I asked, even if it was late, right? You have a spine, right? These other people that go around when I like yesterday, there was a stream. I'm not going to say who. You'll probably find out who it was. They were talking kind of like you were talking. And I asked to come up. Hey, we could talk about it. It was 4 versus 1. They all went against me. They didn't let me up. I appreciate you letting me up when I wanted.
That's bullshit. Oh, sorry.
Is that
we got to end the
confession?
stream.
You definitely got to go to confession now, right?
Yeah,
No, man, my fundamental thing in life is like my favorite thing about Socrates is actually from the oh gosh darn it, you get old and you start the second the Phaedo, where he gives his picture of heaven, which is just discussing ideas with people. Like that's my idea of heaven. Just discussing ideas.
Well, I enjoy doing that, and so I appreciate you having me on, Cameron.
Yeah. I appreciate you making the comment and stuff. Yeah, as you can appreciate, there's a lot of things that get said in these conversations that, well, maybe I'll just I'll save that comment. But Danny, no, it was really good to have you here. So yeah,
I'll go out. How about go? I'll leave, and y'all can kiss or whatever it is that y'all do, and then thank you.
Yeah, that's what.
Well, if I mean, I got to tuck my little girl in.
Oh, He
Oh
already left.
God, he just left.
He just left. He's gone.
I didn't expect him, but I wanted to say goodbye.
He did
Good
just leave.
Lord, I just got emotional whiplash. I was like, I was ready to say goodbye and thank you, and that I found him delightful, and of course feel bad about many of the things that I've said now. But I mean, it's good natured joking. I mean, look, I'm the old man in the room, so you got to make. And when they showed the clip of him from the thing, and it was next to his picture in this thing, they don't even look like the same guy.
Yeah. I mean, that one though is pretty clear, and the lighting was pretty good. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why he looks older.
Well, hey, I tell you this: the older we get, the more we depend on the lighting.
So I did actually want to talk about at some point, and maybe we can just do it really quickly. The reason why I thought that this was a good showing on JP's part, and it's too late now that we don't have Danny here to have him offer some pushback, but I wanted to talk about why I think how we can sort of steelman JP's argument, where he wanted to talk about how
Yes.
why do we worship and stuff. In the fact that atheists worship and they have this sort of commitment to something, that fact about the world, I think that we can turn this, if we plug that into like a Bayesian style argument, a probabilistic argument, it can actually be used as evidence for theism over atheism. And so why don't I go ahead and pull up my little Bayesian bar chart. Let me see if I can pull it up here. There we go. All right. Yeah, this is super fancy stuff, something that I've been working on for many months. And this is basically like a way that you can visualize probabilities. So it's pretty cool. Pretty proud of this thing. It's featured only in one other video. But basically what's happening on the screen here is that you've got two hypotheses under question that we're looking at right now, which is theism. That's the teal portion. And then we've got atheism, the yellow portion, the orangish portion. And so what I've got right now is I've got them split. Their prior probabilities are split evenly just for the sake of simplicity. It's not necessarily that these are the starting probabilities, the starting priors for these two hypotheses. It's just that for the sake of, again, simplicity, maybe visual, that you guys can see how the evidence affects the different probabilities or the different hypotheses. And what it actually does and stuff. You can kind of see it mapped out here. So yeah, we're starting with the same probability just to kind of play evenly across these two. And with this software, we can add pieces of evidence and see how it affects the probabilities, the overall probabilities. Because right now, you can't see it on the screen here. It's too low. But the final posterior probability, actually, I can zoom up a little bit. So the posterior probabilities, since we haven't added any evidence, is 0.5 or 50%. For both of our hypotheses, because all we've entered is our priors. And the prior is just the likelihood of the hypothesis before you look at the evidence. So let's add this piece of evidence. And again, this evidence from the discussion, from the debate that we've just been watching, is the fact that we worship something. Okay, so let me just add in worship. This is our first piece of evidence. Then what we do in our bar chart is we've got to fill in two pieces of two probability assignments that we've got to assign here. So the first one is the likelihood of the evidence given theism. So Trent, what would you say the probability of the fact that we worship and have something that we attend to a pretty serious degree, and this applies generally across humans, what is the probability of that evidence given theism, would you say?
Alex, I'll take super high for 500.
Yeah, no, I think it's like 0.9. I think it's like 90%.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's like, it'd be pretty freaking weird if we didn't, in a way. And man, I was just trying to Google up. I wrote an essay for an anthology on the meaning of life. Man, I wish I could think of the name of it. And it's basically, this is the argument that I gave. I said, I gave a Bayesian argument that on theism, it's highly expected that human beings would seek meaning in life, believe life had meaning, pursue meaning in life, and all these different things. somebody out there, please tell me, where did I publish this essay? Please.
No one,
But yeah, I mean,
knows you that well.
it-
No one
it-
knows you that well, Trent. There may
I
be like
guar- I
three
guarantee
people
you
on the
somebody
earth that know.
I guarantee you somebody out there listening right now knows it. So yeah, I mean, like, man is a religious animal. Why in the world would that be if there wasn't a God? I mean, if there is a God,
Well, we
what's
haven't
he
gotten
gonna
to that
do?
part
Like,
yet. We're just talking about the probability of the evidence given theism, and that seems pretty likely because God
yeah,
would
why?
would
Yeah,
yeah
it's
God
a
would
value,
have that
right?
desire
God,
to it's valuable.
yeah, it's a value. It's an axiological thing. God would consider it good that people rightly worship Him, and that worshiping something is a path to worshiping Him, because you recognize ultimate value in the world.
All right, so when I press enter, some things are going to happen on the screen, and I'll explain what happens after we do that. Okay, so what's happening is that there is a removed portion. Once we add this piece of evidence, there is a removed portion of 0.05, and the reason why it's 0.05 instead of 10 is because it's calculating based on the different, there's two different hypotheses under consideration, so splitting it in half. So 5% of the possibility space on theism is being removed because, let's say, in 10% of possible worlds where theism is true, what we're saying when we say that it's 0.9 likely that we would expect this data given theism, what we're saying is that basically there's like 10% of the worlds given theism don't include this data. But 90% of those possible worlds where theism is true do include that data. And so when we remove the portion, so this data is basically removing parts of the possibility space. And so when you actually remove that space from the hypothesis, you have less of the hypothesis that is sort of left over visually. Okay, and then this gets normalized in the bottom portion. But visually, what's remaining is like 45% of the theism space. And so you've got 45% down here, and we've still got 50% of atheism, but we haven't done the probability of the data given atheism yet. And so once we do that, things are going to change pretty drastically. And we're going to see why. Okay, so yeah, so then the question is, if this is all we know, okay, if all we know is that atheism is true, how likely is it that we would see the sort of characteristic in humans that worship? Why would humans have this sorts of characteristic, let alone there be humans at all in the first place? What is the likelihood of worship given atheism? Trent, what is your answer?
Abysmally low.
How low?
Because I mean, 1% would be extraordinarily generous. I mean, I want to say less. Yeah, because and notice this, because right now there are atheists having brain aneurysms because they have just so stories about the adaptability of religious belief. Notice that that's logically irrelevant here, because that says we got it. How must we have gotten it, right? It's a just so story. But if you start out with the chimpanzee, which is already extraordinarily unlikely on atheism, but you start out with a chimpanzee, and like, how likely is it that the adaptability of that organism is going to turn out to be based on developing mental states with semantic content that refer to omni beings and such? It's like, nah. It's like it's a strip within the possibility space, almost infinitesimally small. So 1%.
But we're going to be generous.
Extremely generous.
We're going to be generous
more
and
like,
plug in
yeah,
1%.
Thousandth of a percent.
Yeah. Okay, so 1%, 0.01. And when I hit enter, things are going to happen on the screen, and we'll go through that. Okay. So what's happened is that 99% of the possibility space of atheism is being removed. Okay, and what's left over is this tiny sliver, which we can actually zoom in on. Actually, let me see if I can zoom here. There we go. Yeah, so if we zoom in, you can see it better. But this is what's remaining. It's 0.005. So 0.5% of atheism is left over. And then once we normalize, let me see if I can get back to full screen. There we go. And then once we normalize, you can kind of see it laid over the probability of 1. And so this is basically the posterior, after we do our calculation, the final posterior probabilities of theism comes out to 98% or 99% if we round up. And atheism is 1% likely. Once we, and this is assuming the priors are on even playing field.
Equal to start with, yeah.
Yeah, that it's equal to start with. Theism and atheism are equally likely. And then just on this one piece of evidence that humans worship something, what is the what is the final probability that we arrive at after we plug in these numbers? 99% probability that theism is true. 0.01, 1% probability that atheism is true.
Yeah, I love this thing, man. Whenever you were developing this thing and taking it through it was cool to see the different versions as it got to this. And you were talking about how many steps should I stow at once. And we haven't talked about this in a really long time, but I love where it ended up, because you got the original, and then you show the update for each, and then you combine them. I think the 4 bars is perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love this thing.
Visually, it really is very, very helpful. Like it shows you what was really helpful for me as I was developing it is the fact that visually it's helpful to think about the hypotheses being sort of cut away. So you're like cutting away portions of the hypothesis as you introduce new pieces of evidence, and what's left over of those hypotheses then get sort of stretched out over it, you sort of normalize over 1, and then you can see how the sliver that's sort of left over does get a little bit bigger. But now what we have is 99% of theism is left and 1% of atheism is left. And again, this is just one piece of evidence. So like if we introduced fine tuning, what would that do to these numbers? It would atheism would fall astronomically, like completely away. Like you'd see basically a full green bar, 0 yellow at all. I'd have to zoom way, way in for us to be able to even see the sliver on atheism that would still be left over. But so kind of getting back to Jordan Peterson now, this is how I think, and this is why I think that he did a good job by focusing on worship, is because this actually is evidence for theism over atheism. And so it was actually and it was very good for him in that sense to focus on that during that section and argue for that position. Now, maybe he wasn't thinking in these terms. He wasn't thinking like Bayesian reasoning. But nevertheless,
Bayesian arguments are rational reconstructions anyway. It's not like Newton was applying Bayes' theorem, but a rational reconstruction and explication of Newton's reasoning, it bears a Bayesian interpretation. I mean, that's almost all Bayesians admit that people aren't explicitly arguing in Bayesian terms, but the only way to make sense out of the rationality of their arguments is to cast them in a Bayesian light.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I thought this was a lot of fun. So, Trent, any last thoughts before we close out the stream tonight?
Yeah, my final thought is that authentic brilliance is the ability to grasp the true value of things. And even in Peterson's, really frustrating aspects, like especially the one, his stuff on belief is very, very frustrating, very frustrating. But even in that, he's at least demonstrating the value of what it would be to say that there is a God and I believe it, because man, we don't act, very, very few of us act like it, it's just such a big thing to say that. And when you're a public figure, to take that on is something that not enough people are scared enough of that as they ought to be, So again, authentic brilliance is grasping the true value of things. And by that standard, he's brilliant. And by focusing on matters of value, he had a brilliant strategy.
All right. Well, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Let me know what you think about the Bayes bar that we just went over. Let me know about that in the comments, and any thoughts that you have on features that you'd like to see software like that have, because I'm starting to turn my attention back to it. I was messing with it earlier. You know what? I need to talk to you, Trent, about this. I was having some trouble modeling uncertainty about evidence as I was trying to implement that into the software. I was having some disagreements with the program that I'm using to flesh out the software. But anyways, yeah, you and
Turns
I
out I've written
talk
on
about
that.
later.
Yeah.
Turns out.
All right.
All right, guys.
Yeah.
I appreciate you tuning in. I will we'll see you guys in the next Capturing Christianity episode very soon. So see you guys later.
Awesome. Bye.